stuff. If we have any available or left over. All right. Good evening. Let's call a committee of the whole meeting of August 12th to order. Please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk?
Here.
Alderman Tulaco? Alderman Meyer? Alderman Hancher? Alderman Bach?
Here.
Alderman Parrish?
Here.
Alderman Bratt?
Here.
Alderman Gebhardt?
Here.
And Mayor Nervin.
Here. First up, we have approval of the meeting minutes from July 14th.
Move approval.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. On to our discussion item. Review and discussion concerning proposed design concepts for Phase 1 of the Mequon Commons Plan. Pardon? Oh, sorry. I just saw you gesturing out of my periphery.
Okay.
So we have our pool architect and Lakota here to help guide us through this. And we're going to have a presentation and stop along the way and have some discussion and decision making. And pardon, what would you like to say?
I'm happy to introduce the item, Mayor.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Members of the committee, tonight's discussion will be, as the mayor mentioned, about Phase 1 design for the Mequon Commons Master Plan that was developed and adopted back in October. As members of the committee will recall, we awarded the Phase 1 design contract just 2 months ago on June 12th. And the current contract scope is for design only. We're not constructing anything tonight. We're not making any spending decisions. We're working on the design for Phase 1. Future contracts will cover detailed design and bid documents as we move forward on construction potentially of Phase 1. And as our consultants here tonight will outline, we're seeking consensus on desired design elements as a follow-up to a final design review, which will be conducted at next month's Committee of the Whole meeting. And the work over the last 2 months that's going to be covered here tonight has been influenced by a number of guiding principles, which are going to be shown up on the screen here for just a minute. And as you can see, we're hoping to align the design with the Civic Campus Master Plan. We want to fit the surrounding area in terms of architecture, history, and scale. We want to make sure there's adequate capacity for the community at large in terms of whatever we build. We're seeking to enter into a design that offers zero depth entry and 25-yard lap lanes, and also offers the opportunity for enhanced programming and potentially unique features. As we've heard from the council, we want to control for operating costs, and this is one of several projects that we're working on concurrently across the city. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Frank Parisi. He's the president and principal in charge of Williams Architects. Frank will introduce the rest of his team and serve to facilitate tonight's conversation here over the next 2 hours or so. Thank you, and Frank, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to find our presentation. If you give me 1 second. What am I missing here? They're not seeing the same one. I apologize. I thought we had this. All right, I apologize, Will. Maybe a little assistance here. I can't seem to get the presentation up.
so I'm just trying to pull it up.
Yeah, it's not reflecting on there. And make sure we have the right one up. That should be right.
Okay, so
I want to start it from the beginning. That's,
yeah, it's not like doing it. That's awesome.
Sacrifice I want to buy because we're building a future for the community. Why would we sacrifice one?
What's page one?
which one is this one? Right here. It's not board. Is it going through the wrong one?
I wonder what slideshow is this one?
It's not syncing the two.
Yeah.
I don't see what's being presented.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Close out of it. Well, why don't we?
Just restart it, yeah.
Okay, so why don't I do this? Why don't I introduce our team? I apologize for that. Thank you for your assistance. So my name is Frank Parisi with Williams Architects. With me this evening, I have one of my partners, Rocco Castellano, as well as our consultant. A little closer? Okay, thank you. With regards to that. Remainder of our consultant team is actually Lakota, and Morgan and Kevin at the other table have actually presented to you with regards to the master plan. And in addition to our team is actually Lance Timmons, and Lance is with Councilman Hunsaker, and they're part of our aquatic engineering group with regards to that. Almost there. Okay, so I'll introduce us today. So our agenda for today is really going to be broken up into several different components in which we are going to talk about, okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Excellent. Thank you for that. So our agenda for today, we're going to actually talk about, we're going to review just the master plan initiatives. We'll talk about something that Will talked about, which is the project initiatives. We'll review design concepts with regards to the aquatics. We'll review cost analyses that go along with that and operational considerations as well. And of course, the intent of tonight's meeting is actually to generate consensus so that this consultant team can actually move to a singular focused solution that we would present at the September 8th meeting. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin and Morgan. They're just going to give us a highlight of what our team or the Lakota team has presented to the council previously.
Thank you. Thanks for having us again. Good to see you guys. Just a reminder, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because I know we went through it before and we were here in April under a tornado warning, if you recall. And we've had some of that weather recently. But just a reminder of where we were and where we ended up and where we're starting from here in this process. The master plan identified a vision for the entire campus and engaging the rest in the community in a public space. And part of that phase one that was identified was focused around modernizing and expanding aquatics, creating and supporting spaces along Cedarburg. You guys do a lot of public events and a lot of really good stuff to invite people out. So kind of inviting people from Cedarburg into the campus and how the interface works there. Enhancing accessibility, visibility, and multi-season use. You challenged us to think about ways that we could bring people into campus to invite the community here and use the space in a lot of different ways. So part of this initiative is the first phase in increasing that activity and visibility. And through this development, we're now refining that master plan. We're moving beyond the high-level master plan into something that is more detailed and thinking about the programming and spatial relationships that go into building a new pool and aquatic facility and the deck and all the things that go with it, with the building itself, that services that pool, and then thinking about the Redbud Plaza piece how we're getting people into the site, and also part of that was that City Hall ADA entrance and thinking about how that might work.
So as part of that master plan, there was some data that was actually collected which impacted this portion of the Phase 1, and we wanted to just highlight those for the team. So this is a snippet from the master plan in which the community, along with some preferences from council, emphasized, using zero-depth entry pool, a lap pool, water play features within the Phase 1 of the aquatics component, and some diving boards. So we wanted to just use that as a reference from the master plan, in which we embraced as part of our design as we can proceed to move forward. So some of the project initiatives that are in the RFP that was in your packet as well. Of course, we are going to present 3 different options, each of varying scale, amenity, and cost with regards to those. They were also going to present 2 different building options, a single-story and a 2-story component. We will actually show designs, 2 variations on the Redbud Plaza and the City Hall. And of course, our intent is to create an accessible universal design, which we're having there with regards to that. And we've evaluated the operational and maintenance impacts of each one of these concepts as part of our process today. Part of our challenge, as you see the look for the building, is incorporating the town center standards within our presentation, and we took that into consideration. Of course, like I said earlier, our intent for this evening is to generate consensus on everything that we're showing with you this evening overall. So before I actually start showing some of our design criteria that we actually went through, I want to just talk a little bit of the format for this evening. All right. There's a lot of content that we're going to share. A lot of content was shared with you previously to our meeting. What I'd like to do is actually separate the presentation out so we can break the entire presentation into smaller pieces. All right. So we're going to start with the aquatics component in its entirety. We're going to show you concepts, costs related to those concepts, and operational and revenue generations with regards to those. Then we'll stop the presentation at that particular juncture. We'll do a little bit of consensus building with regards to that, and then we'll follow the same format for the building. We'll follow the same format for Redbud Plaza and then the city entry with regards to that. So our intent is obviously to have the entire group engaged in this process, and of course, our team will answer any questions along the way with regards to that. Okay, so as part of that initial discussion, I'm going to show graphic representations of some of the amenities that are shown in the concepts that we're going to share with you shortly here, which is reflective on the master plan, but I wanted to get visuals with regards to that. So we have zero-depth entry with play features inside of the zero-depth end. We do have aquatic structures at varying scale that can be entertained in the zero-depth end. Similarly, there can be different scales of vertical play features that can actually be put in partially at the zero depth end of the water. Similarly, when we're talking about a little bit of a wet deck, these are features that can go in a wet deck, like play tables, shade, bubblers with regards to that. Again, similarly along the wet deck scenario. We're going to show an option which has a current channel, and I can describe the current channel more in detail. It's something that is resistive in play, actually more lounging component with regards to that. Sometimes it's actually referred to as a mini lazy river, but you'll see the scale. The site doesn't dictate that, so we wanted to show a representation of that as well. Climbing walls, which can actually go into the deeper pool. And we're going to show variations of different water slides, right? A run-out slide all the way to the left is something that you don't actually plunge into a body of water. Then you actually have a plunge slide that actually goes into a body of water, or a drop slide, which actually goes into the deep portion of the water. As part of our concept designs, as we go through them, we'll talk about activities as well that can happen, similar to what you have now. It can be volleyball play or water basketball play in the activity portions or the leisure portions of the pool. We will actually show different amenities with regards to deep water and how the designs actually work. So each one of these images that we're showing a drop slide, a 1 meter board, a 3 meter board, and of course in the background there is a climbing wall with regards to that. Within the designs as well, which was a criteria from the master plan, We have incorporated a dry play structure, so that's the difference that we actually have within the fence instead of outside of the fence as part of the aquatics experience. Okay, so the three different concepts that we're going to show are in varying scale, right? In amenities, different bodies of water, and as well as deck areas that go surround them. So the first option that we're going to show, and I usually like to show this more experientially if you're coming through. So we'll table the discussion with regards to the building and the concession area with regards to that. So our first concept actually embraced a single body of water, which is something that is very similar in Mequon right now. So if I would approach, I'm going to use my pointer here. If you're coming in through the building on its entry, off to the right, we have a zero depth entry with a play feature to it. It actually goes from 0 to about 3.5 feet of water in the middle, which is leisure play with regards to that. And all of this water actually is at 3 feet. We do have benches in here for just some lounging capabilities. And the leisure water actually has staircases that leads you into that. As part of this singular body of water, we've incorporated 3 lap lanes. And just be mindful of that lap lanes are actually for recreational swim if needed, but that water can actually use as activity water, no different than what your pool is actually doing now with regards to that. One of the differentiators we actually have in this particular option is that run-out slide that I was mentioning to you off on the west side of the site with regards to that. And then, of course, we like to show lounge areas all the way around the pools. They're depicted with the little squares, and then the yellow squares that we have are different shading features that actually go along with the body of water with regards to that. In concept 1, we actually are incorporating the dry play as part of that option, and everything in green are sort of lawn areas. So in the course of a day, if you had camps, families that can actually use the lawn or be on the deck and provide the seating that is capable with regards to that. As part of this amenity, very simple in nature, I think I referred to the spray play area or the feature that's right at the zero depth entry with regards to that. So that is concept number 1. So these concepts actually progress into a different approach, and we do have 2 concepts with relation to concept 2. So now we start separating from one body of water to 2 separate bodies of water. Same particular entrance. So on the east side, we do have a zero depth entry with a wet deck with play features for smaller toddler children on that particular end, family oriented. The water is zero depth and it proceeds to a deeper 3.5 feet at the other end. There is a play feature as well in this particular option, but the difference between this one and concept 1 is we are separating these 2 bodies of water. So in this particular option, different than concept 1, we are proposing 6 lanes of lap swim as an opportunity. There is a plunge slide that's associated with this deeper set of water. And in this option, a little different than concept 1, this contains deeper water, which was not in concept 1. So the pool actually goes from about 3.5 feet to 12 feet on the other side of the lap swim, and it actually has a 1 meter board on the other side in tandem with the slide at the deeper end of the water. That would be the differentiation between concept 1 and 2. So concept 1 does not have deep water, and that could be a point of discussion for today. Now, similarly, you can see that we've softened the entire landscape with landscaping inside of it, and we've intentionally separated these 2 bodies of water with fencing from 2 perspectives. A point of use, of course, with different age groups and demographics between these 2 bodies of water, but also operationally. In the event that it's a colder day or there's less attendance, you can actually close one portion of the side on the west side with the lap swim and then keep the other portion open from a life safety perspective, thus reducing the operations that can actually go associated with regards to concept number 2. So a variation to concept 2 is flips the 2 bodies of water, one on the east side and one on the west side. And the intent for that flip is the synergy that we can talk about with regards to the concession and its concession operation to family and deck area with regards to that. The amenities are the same, and also the only difference here is at the lap side, still shallower to deeper water on that side, and this option does not contain the plunge slide that I mentioned in the earlier option. So concept 3 actually takes a different approach with regards to it. It does separate it into 2 separate bodies of water, and you can see the activities that are going on with that. I'll walk everyone through that. So this has, in dotted, is an activity pool in which we're showing 3 lap lanes for possible recreational swim in that particular aspect. Similarly, this actually has a 0 depth entry that goes from 0 to 3.5 feet. In this option, we do have just a smaller play feature at the 0 depth end. There's a lounging component. We'll call this a sunning shelf, where it has very shallow water with regards to that for families and smaller children for learn to swim. So that is something that we actually considered in each one of these schemes, right? Not only from a recreational perspective, but also the opportunities for learn to swim at different levels and different depths of water. In this particular option, we do have stairs that go into that. This is the option that I showed with a current channel. So programmatically, what can happen there, in addition to the lounging component, there can be an opportunity for recreational fitness that goes along with the current channel. So if you can envision jets in that current channel, and if you did some resistive walking, that can actually be an opportunity with regards to do that if you walk against the current with, in that particular option. We are showing shade, which is something we learned through our experience in doing these types of pools. That comes very handy at the 0 depth end, knowing that there's children, smaller children on there that could be very sensitive to that particular aspect. Now, the difference between this option and the previous 2 options is this one actually has a separate deep hopper on its own, a deeper body of water, in which, again, separated operationally from with fencing and landscape in between it. But the deeper body of water actually has a platform which would contain a drop slide, a 3-meter board, a 1-meter board, and then a climbing wall on it as well. Now, in this particular design, the intent is to actually have all 3 of these amenities operating at the same time, thus the size of the pool, but actually to facilitate accessibility and getting out of the pool, there are steps that lead you out of the pool a little easier than just climbing up a rail with regards to that overall. Again, similarly, we'll talk about these separately. There's a concession component with a multi-use component tied to the building, and then an outside component which will energize with the discussion with Redbud Plaza and its surroundings with regards to that. All right, this is a matrices that we prepared in between each one of these concepts that actually shows and compares what Mequon actually owns as an existing pool, and then identifies bather loads, square footages, and the difference between those in each one of these concepts 1 through 3 with regards to different amenities and calculations that we had done just as a reference. All right, as part of our charge, we those 3 options that we talked about all are differing scale and capital cost that goes along with them. So we wanted to share the capital cost for each one of these. Now, mind you, when I show this, and the total project cost at the bottom is actually comprehensive. So when we actually mean a total project cost, it includes all the hard construction costs with a subcontractor, any of the soft costs, which are all engineering and possible permitting costs that go along with that. In this particular option, in concept 1, everything that we're showing has different variations with regards to the cost that would total the $13.8 million. And it is inclusive of the improvements that we'll talk about in the future for the building. So this one actually has the single-story option in it. Concept 1, the way we presented the pool, and for concept 1, it has a variation on Redbud Plaza and the access, east-west access in between there. All right, so those items are all calculated off to the side In blue, if you add those up, that actually includes $13.8 million with regards to that. Now, the items that are in red are items that are not part of the 13.8, which we have discussion to, particularly associated with the aquatic development portion. We did entertain separating out the body flume slide, which we talked about here with the runout, the zero depth entry feature as a separate cost for consideration. As part of a discussion, we wanted to ensure that if there was a discussion associated with an additional lap lane, we did have a cost with regards to that, the shade structures, and as well as the dry play area. So those areas that are highlighted in green in this particular concept also would turn into lawn area instead of deck area in that particular option for $13.8 million. Now, as the options increase for option 2B, so options 2A and 2B are very similar in cost with regards to the aquatics components with regards to this. This actually is showing in reference a single-story building with multipurpose and concession versus concept 1 did not have those two items in there with regards to that. And on the aquatics development side, we actually have different options for a deep water slide, which was in this particular corner in option 2A, the dry play feature, which is the playground, and then the shade structures, which would include not only everything that is in yellow with regard to this shade sails with regards to that. I do apologize. Again, this is concept 1 with regards to Redbud Plaza, which the Lakota team will share a little bit further in detail as we get there, but we also have a cost associated with the City Hall entry plaza from a fully accessible perspective. And that total for concept 2 is $17.2 million. In concept 3, similar approach. This actually is incorporating everything that we're showing in the design with regards to a 2-story option on the building that's inclusive in the $20.5 million option, and as well in the aquatic development with regards to this. So the only thing in the aquatic development which is inclusive that is not is actually if there was a consideration for an additional lap lane, but it shows the full design intent that we've presented to date for both any and all of these options, including a 2-story option with regards to the building, with regards to that. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to turn the floor over to Lance, and we're going to go over some expense and revenue generations, which is the operational considerations we have for each one of these options we just presented.
Thanks, Frank. So as part of this exercise, we took a look at 6 variables as it pertains to our expense analysis. And what I'd like to highlight is not those 6 bullet points necessarily, from personnel to water and sewer, but also that this expense analysis was grounded in existing user projection data that was provided. So thank you, by the way, Kimberly, Kristen, and Will for providing this data to help project this as accurately as we can. Next slide, please. So this is our annual operating budget here projected. And what we can see here is, one, labor is quite the, certainly the larger expense when compared to operating expenses and utilities. We're seeing roughly, depending on the concept, between 5 and 8 lifeguards would be required to operate the facility. So we're seeing a range of total operating expenses before the capital replacement fund recommendation at somewhere between $320,000 and $361,000 between concept 1 and concept 3. Revenue as well was looked at as part of our study to determine how that compares with expenses. So just some highlights. When reviewing the revenue and expense, and we have some charts to follow this particular slide here, we're assuming to operate these facilities or this concept in a similar manner as the existing Mequon community pool, meaning between Memorial Day and Labor Day, so roughly 85 days. We are anticipating slightly higher rates for admissions, so that's $10 to $12 for adults, $8 to $10 for children, and roughly a 20% increase for non-residents. There, you'll notice in the upcoming charts, we have five rows or columns rather of revenue potential. Again, this is grounded in how the existing Mequon pool has historically operated. Next slide, please. So as far as revenue here, we wanted to not only take a look at our revenue opportunities in each concept, but also give you an idea of what the revenue considerations could be if you were to, let's say, remove the slide in concept 1 or proceed without concessions. So with that said, between concepts 1 and 3, we're seeing a range of 181,000 upwards to 257,000. We can also see that by removing concessions, we do lower our overall revenue accumulation, and you'll see in the next slide how that impacts the total cost recovery. So essentially, putting the last 5 or 6 slides together into one convenient table, we're able to see overall attendance projections, our expense budgets, revenue budgets, the overall cash flow, and subsequently the cost recovery percentage. So some bigger takeaways when we're looking at these concepts and the stipulations of those concepts as it relates to removing a slide or having concessions versus not having concessions. We're seeing again that removing those concessions does decrease the cost recovery. However, in concept 1 in particular, having that no slide option and removing that slide tower increases the cost recovery despite the projected decrease in attendance given that larger slide amenity. Now, I did want to also include some opportunities for additional revenues. So that being swim lessons. To my knowledge, the swim lessons currently are essentially rented at a $1,200 figure monthly. That was shown in the current revenue analysis. But hosting additional classes is certainly an opportunity for additional revenue, as well as water fitness. We've noticed our active older adult group being the fastest growing user group. Those silver sneakers classes, those folks that want to use the water weights and perhaps even extend into some rehabilitation level courses in the water. And not only that, but also additional rental opportunities utilizing the multi-purpose rooms as depicted in some of these concepts for birthday party rentals, perhaps even outdoor cabana rentals could be additional opportunities for revenue. And lastly, a summer swim team could be an option. Additional resident and non-resident rate increases will certainly affect the bottom line, and the occasional special event could bring in some additional revenue as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Lance. So that concludes the first portion of our presentation. So I want to turn it over to kind of an open discussion. And I think that probably the best way to start our discussions today is to actually start with these concepts and look at the concept that we've actually shown, and I can toggle between them. So I do have a list of questions with regards to kind of generating feedback with regards to that. I'm actually going to start with the number of bodies of water that we have shown, and the depths of the water, which will lead to another discussion. So the first question that our team would actually have is obviously the obvious one, is if we're leaning toward one of these 3 concepts, we can actually start a discussion off of one of those concepts. And my intent is to actually use them individually after we kind of hone in on the number of bodies of water, and then start talking about the amenities that go into each body of water with regards to that. So the first question to ask for the group is, Okay, is there a leaning to one of these three concepts? And of course, the difference between those is, do we have a singular body of water with regards to that, or is it multiple bodies of water where it has varying depths with regards to that?
I see Alderman Strelchek, our pool advocate, raised his hand. Go right ahead, Rob.
Pool advocate, I like that title. I've shared a lot with you in one-on-one meetings, so again, team, thank you so much for everything that we've talked about. And then we did go through like the ROI, the lifeguard, load and everything else. I'm just going to bring up one point that I didn't bring up in the meeting before, just kind of to throw a little, spin at you. But 1 versus 2 for me really lies on the fact that there's no deep water in 1. So no deep water in 1 is a no-go for me. It's a hard pass. I think you lose your mid-teen crowd, kids that want to jump off the diving board, and then kind of that next advanced level for swimming lessons. I think really what the pool brings to the community, and then the slides that go into the water versus a separate slide area, that wasn't my favorite. It was kind of a no-go for me. I did an aerial view of 3 neighboring communities. I did Port Washington, Grafton, and Cedarburg. They all have a single pool, but it's significantly bigger than what you're showing here. So if we do stick with some level of a single pool concept, I'm going to recommend that we come back with a significantly bigger one just to entertain that. But we tie in with the, I'm guessing we'll all, or at least most of us, will lean towards something with deep water. So I think that was kind of a miss on that first slide. And that's just kind of where I'm at. I'm curious to see what everyone has to say, and maybe I'll chime in later. So I'll cut this portion short. Thanks.
Alderman Strelchek's hinting at something I was going to suggest is maybe there's, instead of picking one to build off of, maybe there's one you can throw out right away too. That's another good way to start. Alderman Bach.
Thanks again for putting this together. As I mentioned when I came into a couple of you, there's a lot of planning that goes into this. There's a lot of planning charrettes, and just to get to this point. So I appreciate that. And like Alderman Strelchek, I was a swimmer too, and I was a pool manager as well for a while. So even though I'm not an expert, I just have a couple things I've learned along the way. But I do agree that I think, if we're just looking at what we have right here, I'd say 2 or 3. I would take out 1 for similar reasons. One of the things that I'm curious about is like in number 2 that had 6 lap lanes. And so, one of the questions is there going to be a summer swim team or something like that? Or is it going to be for adults? Do you really need those 6 lanes? Because when you look at who is using the pool, and I think you hinted at some of that, you've got families with young children for swimming lessons, and maybe under the age of 15 or 14 are they going to be the main users, and maybe some of the adults, which one of you mentioned as far as some of those classes that could happen. But I don't know. I think if that in number 2, where you had if you had basketball and some of those kinds of things, that was open, that might work. But I don't know. I was kind of leaning to concept 3, but I could be pushed to number 2 with some changes. But that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and then just to give you feedback on the lap lanes, like we did have discussion pretty heftily in the meeting prior that, keep in mind the lap lanes are designed that the lane lines are removable. So it's just really open space in a pool at a certain depth that you could envision kids playing catch with a ball, shallow end classes or things along those lines. So, really what I'm looking at here and what I worked with the team on and my recommendations was, did we get the width of the pool so that we could safely have, multiple diving boards? My thing was, we show 1 diving board in 1 version, but I think we should have at least 2. And then the slide feature. And then that width of that pool, really with the extra lanes, the overall expense is the lane lines themselves, which all go on a bulkhead and they get wound up. You've done that in the pool. Take the wrench and you wind them out. Take them out for general use.
Yeah. How deep in concept 3 and those lanes? How deep is that water where the lap lanes are? Is that
In concept 3?
Yeah, concept 3. Is that shallow all the way along?
Correct. So in concept 3, if I can point, right, the lap lanes are here, and this would go from about 3.5 feet all to maybe to 5, but usually it's about 3 to 3.5 all the way across.
So that still could be a play area for kids if you're not using the lap lanes.
I believe you guys are hinting to that. Even though we graphically show lane markers, right, that is only the opportunity if you did want to have some sort of competition swim with regards to that, which is a question that I have. But as Commissioner Streshek had referred to it, the lane lines actually come out, and it's purely used as activity water in each one of these concepts, whether it be this one as well as option 2.
Alderman Meyer.
This may be just a tad off the subject, but it might have to do whether the pool fits in or not. So the main entry point for the whole plaza there is the plaza in between the city hall and the pool?
The main entry point to the pool is actually on the library side. A little different than what you have now. So the main entrance to the pool, this is the bathhouse. So you would actually come in through the bathhouse, and then you would have access to that. Redbud Plaza and the connector in between there are on obviously the south and the east side of the pool.
So the majority of our parking is actually going to be on this other side of that.
I don't know if I understand. Well, the parking would actually be where you
Behind
have it
City
now.
Hall, the one we have back over here and back, that's going to be one of our main sources of the parking. Another one would be Division Street way over there, and then the library, which is.
I think a lot of people use the library till the library fills up. And
Yeah,
then they park elsewhere, but
There's bigger capacity over here on this side in the back of City Hall than there is over in the library for parking for the pool. I'm just bringing that up because of the fact that if that gets kind of the entranceway inside of that, because more parking over here for it, because that used over there, would that change the configuration of the pool because of that?
It would.
And that would mean taking the building and putting it on the opposite side and having that as the main entranceway for it.
You are correct.
I mean, that's my concern, because it's always parking. So when it comes to the pool size inside, I mean, that would kind of make a little bit of determination inside of it, I would think, for configurations of the pool then.
Can you repeat that question, please?
Well, if that was flipped around, the entranceway being on the southern side of it, because that's where more of the parking is for it, they'd probably be flipping the building around to that side then, and then would that change configuration for the pool? I mean, would that
It would.
limit it more?
It would change the configuration of the pool. Please take something into consideration from a streetscape perspective, right? Of course, we feel that the building being anchored in this location contextually does play off of the library architecturally, and it does anchor the pool on the other side from an orientation perspective. It does give you some visibility as you're coming down Cedarburg with regards to that. In that particular regard. And it does give you the best opportunity to actually maximize. So the deck areas that are associated and the lawn areas that are associated with that. So please take into consideration as well, if I can go back one step to the master plan, right? So the master plan, the way it was discussed was with the council that this was the optimal location of the building when we actually did that phase 1 discussion.
Yeah, and I can add to that. I think as we went through and we talked about this a few times at this level, because we had the building oriented in a couple different ways. One way we talked about, should we orient it along the streetscape, or should we orient it with that parking in the entry here, and maximizing kind of sun exposure, being on the deck, having that kind of experience at the pool level. This worked better from the perspective of how that functions. Parking has always been a bit constrained on the campus, we know. That's why we're making those connections to the larger parking field that's back here that will go behind City Hall with the walkway on that west side there, knowing that people are going to be coming from a lot of different directions. But really trying to create this orientation in the best way for the pool itself.
Yeah, I'm trying to envision the building on the south side of the lot, and it just seems like it's way too close to City Hall. It starts to get crowded together. The massing becomes odd visually. Alderwoman Talaco.
I can understand Alderman Meyer's concerns. However, my envision for this building is that it's not going to be used just as a pool entrance. It's going to have a community space within it, which will give it easy accessibility with that library parking lot throughout the winter months and the fall months. It's a short period of time when people are going to have to walk a little further. The weather is going to be nicer, and I feel that that will be attainable. As far as the conceptual designs of the pool, originally I did not like the concept of two separate pools, but the more that it kind of settled in, I think that the idea of creating two separate spaces where younger children are kind of not fenced in, but a stricter perimeter makes sense. Concept 2A has a lot of really good things, or I'm sorry, 2B, and then mixed with concept 3. And if I feel like the concepts of like more of an adult, like older kid pool versus younger is great. I guess I would kind of like to see if we're gonna do a deeper pool that has more adult, that the lanes would be available in that pool, and that the kid area would be really that play area where you could have still that lazy river, the splash, the zero entry, a little bit more sport activity, so that the adults, when choosing, that they would have a more easier access in that deeper entry pool. I think it needs a lot of tweaking still, but I appreciate the hard work, the effort, how you guys took our survey really into account and what our residents want. And while the price tag is probably more than what anyone would like to see, I see that doing this right the first time for the next 20, 30 years is going to provide not only for our residents, but also support our neighboring communities and the businesses that we have here and attract families. So I'm excited to keep this project moving forward, and thank you.
Alderman Parrish.
Hi, welcome back to the Lakota Group, and to you as well. You did a nice job here. Thank you to Alderman Strelchuk for spending time offline to get some of your ideas vetted and incorporated. I think it led to a productive conversation today. I guess I have a few questions, and I can give you some commentary, but can you just explain quick, like let's say we just said, just in philosophically, isn't it more cost effective to have one pool? It wouldn't, I get the benefit of a separate pool, but by having one pool, isn't there fewer lifeguards perhaps? Isn't there some savings by having just less material because it's one pool? If you had to throw a number at it?
Lance, you want to share, and then I can share a little bit of the operational too. Go ahead.
That's a great question. In the past, I'd say, 1930s, right? This Mequon pool was originally constructed in 1933. Upwards of even the early 2000s, we've seen one single body of water, kind of a, hole in the ground per se. The advantage of having multiple bodies of water is varying water temperatures and water depths. So achieving a zero depth entryway and 15-foot depth for a 3-meter diving board can be rather difficult to achieve depending on the design. It would, certainly require a wider body of water. There are some pros and cons, such as number of mechanical systems. Each body of water is going to require its own filtration, its own mechanical systems to operate. However, another benefit is from an operational point of view, if you really only have children and families that are intending on utilizing the zero depth entryway, like in concept 2B here, you can close off the 6-lane lap pool and still have that dual use. So it's not just varying depths, but also varying temperatures. We would anticipate that 6-lane lap pool to be somewhere between 78 and 82 degrees, and the zero depth entry pool more friendly towards leisure and recreation. So like similar, maybe 84 to 86 degrees, maybe 87. Frank, do you want to add to that?
Pretty significant. So you wouldn't have been able, how would you have done that if it was one pool?
You would not.
Okay. Which is why the deep option is missing, that Alderman Strout in concept 1.
The concept 1, the deep option is missing exactly to have this stimulated discussion, right, in that particular instance. So
Yeah.
the deep water is omitted from there from a financial perspective, initial capital cost. Deep water is more costly than building shallower water. And I did want to have that discussion with the commission with regards to the preference of having deep water or not, and we can evaluate what amenities go there. And the other question to ask is it part of a similar pool or its own pool with regards to that?
I think I can move on from the 1 versus 2 pool.
Okay.
Was there any discussion about, like, what is the real demand for lap lanes? I don't have any concept. Do we have 3 now and they're always full, or?
Well, okay, so that was something that Lance had talked about. So the demand for lap lanes is think of the water always as versatile water. We always design the waters from a maximum flexibility. The lap lanes is only geared toward that one recreational use at a time. So for example, in the course of an afternoon, let's say like this afternoon, from a programmatic perspective and scheduling perspective, those lap lanes would all be used as activity water with regards to that. It gives you the maximum flexibility. There could be an opportunity to cordon off 1 or 2 lanes for the recreational lap swimmer if you desire to, or if there was an intent to just doing lap swim, that can actually be scheduled first thing in the morning, and then you can actually do lap swim in the beginning of the day with 8 lanes or 6 lanes in this particular option, and have that opportunity to do that. Now, if you did the 6 lanes and there was discussion, which you do not have, right? There's not a competition swim team in Mequon right now that uses your pool, but if that was an option to present itself, then we would definitely recommend having a minimum of 6 lanes.
Thank you. So I'd probably be leaning towards 2B, but with more amenities shown for the lap lane pool, just assuming that it won't always be laps, so like more diving boards and fun-looking things on there. So yeah, I assume you'll be coming back with some other concepts. I guess one other cost that I feel might be missing in here is the cost for, and I know it's the same cost in all scenarios, would be the cost to restore Reineke or the future amphitheater area to simply grass, because, allow me to continue, this is way over what I had dreamed of, and I get that this is a generational project. I'm concerned we're not going to get to phase 2, or that we're going to feel pressure to take out a lot of debt to accomplish phase 2. So I think it's very important that we have kind of like a cost just for a stabilization, so it's essentially a grass field. So we have that ability to not have to go right into phase 2. I've brought it up before, it's come up at the Finance Committee. This is all the more reason why we need to launch a fundraising campaign as soon as possible. It's come up a couple times now. Not holding that up as a condition here, but we need to acknowledge that, look, we threw in a pool house and it's going to be amazing. It's a great idea, but that pool house could be named in perpetuity. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't raise $3 to $5 million from the community, such that I don't have to be sitting here right now trying to cut costs in my mind because everything is on an overrun. So I think if the council could kind of have that relief valve to know that fundraising is coming down the corner, it would make this process much easier moving forward.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
If I may?
Yeah, thank you.
I think you might be losing me a little bit, maybe Morgan and Kevin. So are you referring to the areas that are outside of the Phase 1, making sure there's enough transitional spaces to that? Is that what we're
Correct.
talking?
I guess it's more of a question for Evan and
Well,
the
I
Lakota
think-
group and our
Yeah,
staff.
they were charged with putting together concepts and estimates for Phase 1, and what you're talking about is outside of what they were asked to do, so it's more a comment for our staff, I think.
Okay.
I think it
think
is
about.
too, probably for Lakota, and this is a little bit higher than I felt like your projections were, respectfully, and now I'm struggling and trying to figure out how to get everything we want and pay for it.
Yeah, I think when we're going through this process and we're getting very detailed on what that spec is, what that building is, 2 bodies of water, the deck, all of the things that go in that project cost, and understanding that as we develop this site, we always have to think about the edges, which you're thinking about, Brian. There has to be something that it connects to, right? You can't just plop a pool down. You have to have a connection to the sidewalk, to the parking lot, to what's happening on the west, and to your point, restoring, as Renicky goes, restoring that to something, whether it's grass or something else, for sure. And I don't know if staff needs to speak to the plan for that.
That's not a request. It's more that when you come back to start vetting out that cost, so that we have that. We have 2 options. What's the cost to move right into Phase 2 for the amphitheater phase? And what's the cost, recognizing a shortfall of funding at that point, and that we just need to restore it to a grass field?
For sure.
So that we are looking at this as a total project cost and not in silos.
Yep.
Thank you. That would be all my comments, and nice job. I appreciate both teams being here as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Alderman Hancher.
Good evening. Thank you for presenting these plans. As I look at all the different designs, my preference would be pool 2B. And the reason why would be that at the Zero's depth pool, it's near the concession stand, which would make it easier for parents to watch their younger children and as they eat and so on. Now, it kind of reminds me of the old JCC pool in Mequon. So the old JCC pool had 2 pools, well, actually more than about 2 pools. They had the deep end where there was a lap pool, lap lanes, but there also was a climbing, and there was also, I think there was a diving board. And then they had the zero depth lane, zero depth pool, which they had lots of play areas. When my kids were younger, that's what we would do. And it worked out really well. I mean, the kids, they were all, the younger kids were actually separated from the older kids, because the older kids were in the older, the deeper pool. The younger kids were over there. So it was nice that there was a break between those 2 groups, which the older kids wouldn't be trampling on the younger kids. So I kind of, that's why I like pool design 2B. My next question, we talk about maintenance and about saving money in the future. Has the idea of possibly putting in solar panels on the roof to save costs in the future?
I can probably answer that question.
Okay.
I think when we get to the building design, it's a particular detail that we can talk about. That could be something we can vet out when we actually get into the details of the building. And if that's one of the sustainability approaches the council would like to entertain, look at that.
The reason why I say that, I'm on the library board, and we just recently, in the past year, put on solar panels on the roof of the library. Saves a lot of money already. And so if we're talking about saving money in the future, I know there's an upfront cost, but there's grants that we could obtain. But also, when you're talking about in years future, that it's a good cost savings.
Excellent.
Especially if we have it where it's more than just the summer, where people are using the multipurpose room for other, let's say, for birthday parties, like outside of the summer season. Something to think about.
Okay.
Thank you.
No one's raising their hand right away. I'll fill the gap till someone else wants to speak. I'm sensing somewhat of a consensus forming around concept 2B, maybe with some desire to make sure there's enough amenities in the deep water section. As it's showing right now, 2B only has one diving board. I think there's some consensus that we may need. We have two now we use, and they get busy. It'd be nice to have a couple. And there's I don't know if we want to slide or not, something to make it with a little more pizzazz than what we have now. And one thing I don't want to lose track of as well is it's in 2B, but it wasn't in every concept, is the dry play area off to the
Correct.
side. I think there was some general consensus of having something small there and available for, some people's kids just don't want to be in the water, or they get sick of the water and want to go do something, but the other sibling wants to stay in the water. I think that's an important feature not to lose track of in this as we focus on the water. But I think that's important to include, just to make sure people can stay as long as they want to stay when those situations happen, because they do happen. Does everyone agree we're kind of forming some sort of consensus around 2B?
With those, things that you talked about.
Some enhanced amenities in the deep water? Alderman Strelchak.
Is the intent and the consensus around 2B to have the deep end closer to the street and then the dry play and the shallower near the concessions, or what's driving the consensus to 2B versus 2A?
I don't know, I'm just parroting back what I've heard many people say now.
And I'm just trying to get a little more feedback on that, because I know
Feel free to speak freely. We don't have to.
I
can
know
have
that
this
we
be a little
talked about
round robin here.
slides, so I just don't know visually where those slides would go in on 2B.
Good.
And there's not a lot of allocated space.
All right, so can I share a couple thoughts?
Yeah, sure.
With regards to that? Because I think if we're honing in on option 2B, right? One of the things that we talked about, and I'm going to start separating the pools for discussion, right? Because we need to know exactly what the amenities are with regards to that. So if there is synergy on this side, right, on the west side, with the zero depth and its amenities associated with the play on the west side of this aquatics component, which actually ties to the concession component as well with regards to that. Now, if you noticed in some of the options, we do have amenities within here as well as the basketball. So to answer Commissioner Strelchak's question, if this was the case and there was the desire to actually have only two bodies of water in which the lap lane, we'll refer to the activity water with the lap lanes that have the deeper side on this side, right? Which is our recommendation, by the way. I would not want to flip these so that you actually have it closer to the entrance. We can actually, deciding on the amenities there, which I would ask the question. So is it okay if we kind of go through each one of the pools on their own and I'll share things from different slides and bring them here, which will give us some pretty good direction on what the amenities would actually be in the deep water, which I think I heard the mayor just say. All right.
And then keep in mind, your 2B version on your summary page on our packet page 28 is different than the main page. The pool is flipped. So that might be a discussion point you might want to ask as well.
I'd add too, I mean, if you're gonna want to leave at least one lap lane open all the time, so if adults are two lap lanes, right? So, if adults are there and want to swim with their kids or something, so keep in mind that that's going to take some of that geography away from the pool because you're going to have lines in there, at least one or two lanes. So that's cutting that up a little bit.
Okay, so I'm going to refer to, so you're referring between 2A and 2B, correct? Commissioner Strelchak?
You have 2B, which is your main packet page, and then you show the pool with the notch in one corner, and then on our packet page on your summary page, with aquatic design summary is the title on it, packet page 28. The 2B pool is switched with the notch closest to the dry play system.
Yeah,
I
the
think I
zero
know.
depth entry is off to the west versus where we're showing it off to the east. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
I noticed that too. I think
I think it's great.
animation-
I
yeah,
love it.
I think that's preferred.
Our animation shows it with the west side.
On the west side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't have my microphone on.
I was trying to understand what he was saying.
Yeah, I'm calling.
So basically, you're saying that mirroring this pool the other way is the preferred option.
It keeps the small kids by the dry play area so they can go between the two and a mom can sit in the middle.
It kind of hugs the landform edge as well.
Yeah. The only challenge with 2B is where would you put a slide so that, because you're showing a large mass of seating on the east side of the street in 2B. And when
Well-
those kids come out of those seats and they jump in, they're going to jump into the lap lanes, you know? So you kind of want to divide that out from wherever we choose to put the slide.
So let me ask the question about that particular option with regards to that. So if I can go back to the different options or the different amenities with regards to that water, right? So we're talking about a couple different things here. All right, so here is a deep water configuration. So maybe that's something that we can actually talk about, right? So this is actually showing us, that you see the lap lanes with regards to that. So the discussion would be, when we talk about a slide, there's different variations of a slide. So why don't we really talk about these individually? So is there a desire to have a 1 meter board? Just gonna kind of. Two, okay, I heard 1 meter board, right? In that particular instance. Is there a desire to actually have a 3 meter board, which is the taller board in the middle? Well, I'm asking the question, right?
Yes.
They're nice, it's just, it causes insurance or some kinds of things.
Yeah, and I don't know where that is. The one thing to keep in mind while we're evaluating boards and slides is you're going to need a guard on the top of the slide to release people on the slide, but they could also manage the board with that
the same
concept
time.
design on the same side. So you could kind of have dual benefits from a safety standpoint of that guard kind of monitoring that traffic on both ends.
Yeah, the old board didn't have much guardrails up there though.
No.
So the intent here, depending on what amenities we have, right? Our recommendation is if you actually do a 3 meter board, right? We actually would recommend having a platform. Gone are the days where you actually climb up, and we would recommend having a platform, which is what Commissioner Strelchuk is talking about. And then the next question is the type of slide that we're talking about here, right? So this is a drop slide which goes into the deeper end of the pool. A little contrary to some of the other imagery that I had shown, which is this. So this is the drop slide, which we were talking about, versus a plunge slide. So this does not go into deep water. This would go into shallower water. So if the desire is to actually have deep water, which is what we just heard, the amenities I heard were the 1 meter board, potentially a 3 meter board, and then potentially a drop slide with regards to that. Now, we can figure out the challenges on where it's located and the width of the pool from a life safety perspective. Leave that to our team to do that. But if we can get input on, are those the 3 things we'd like to see at the deep end? And I'm going to have one last question with regards to that. Is there interest in having a climbing wall as well?
The wish list is vast.
Asking the question.
I see a lot of head shaking, but for the time I bought pool passes at the old JCC pool, the climbing wall was pretty popular.
Yeah, sure, great.
Yep, it will get used if you put it in there,
Okay.
but you don't have to put it in there.
But I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If when you're putting those boards in and the slide in the deep area, don't you have to cross off that area? I mean, you have to put something across the pool, a lane line.
You are
across that,
correct.
right?
You are
Because you got
correct.
to separate that from the kids playing in the other part of the pool. So somehow that's going to have to be.
So if we looked at this option in that course of the day, right, aside from the lap swim, you are correct. If you did have these amenities going on the deeper side of the pool, You would actually divide with the lane marker at about 5 feet, if I'm not mistaken, Lance. At the 5-foot marker, because the depth gets deeper, so there would be a lane marker that goes here, which indicates shallower water here and deeper water there. So you are correct. On the deeper side, in this particular instance, right, there will only be at one time 3 users using it at the same time on the depth of the water.
So I'm just saying that cuts off your geography. If you have 2 lap lanes, then the line going across, you've got one little area for play at the top. That's what I'm saying.
So can I ask another question, which maybe that's triggered with regards to that? Is there, and I'm just throwing the ideas out there, right? In concept 3, we do have a separate deep pool, which would alleviate that concern that was just presented.
Yeah, I was just going to make that point. I think that's why you presented option 3.
That is correct.
I think operationally it makes a lot of sense. I don't know what others think though, because all the activity in the deep well is deep well activity, so you don't have the slicing and dicing of areas and needing to reconfigure. I mean, if you isolate just the pool costs too, there's not an incredible difference in cost between any of the options, at least based off the materials in the packet. If you look at just the pool.
Oh, just the pool components,
pool
that is
and-
correct.
And forget everything else. I think that's, that was lost a little bit on some of the summary slides because we're mixing building and pool and different versions of Red Bud Plaza. It gets hard to isolate, but just based on the info in the packet, and maybe numbers have moved around since the packet was generated, but from one pool to the next, I just had it, and I don't know why I can't find it.
I actually have it in the presentation if you want me to show it.
Sure, it was,
Further down.
there wasn't an incredible cost spread from the very low end to the high end if you're talking about just the pool. I think that just looking at that makes the discussion a little easier when we're talking about just the pool.
Just the pool amenities alone.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the summary slide with the
Can I
costs.
propose something?
Yes.
So so in concept 2B, the pool with the shallow water, getting a little bit, the zero entry is great. I would propose that somehow you add, I'm still in favor of seeing this lazy river. I think it's gonna be an awesome feature and is multi-purpose. In pool 3, that deep pool is awesome. I think that the scale of it is wrong. I think that that's where the lap lanes need to go. So if it can be a little bit longer, or you guys can change that configuration, I think that kind of gets us to all of these concerns.
Squared up.
Mm-hmm.
Let me keep.
And my understanding is nobody is, well, besides maybe Rob wants the 6 lap lanes, but I think we're all agreeable that at least 3.
Well, there's some discussion around 4 lap lanes when Rob and I got a preview of this, was it 2 weeks ago? Something like that?
Yeah, two or 3 weeks ago. The concept of just having lap lanes in general, in multi-use is that it does open it up to a swim team coming in and doing morning workouts. Or the rec department choosing to put lap swim in, and you only need a single guard to guard that. You don't open any of the other features. You have it in the one pool. I've guarded those type of situations in the past.
Can I go back one? Sorry.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, I
and I-
want to
you-
kind of go from one pool to the next, right, in that particular. So I just heard potentially to solve the operational issue that we just talked about, putting a lane marker in the 6-lane lap pool, is I'm hearing consensus to go to a different deep hopper pool, which has the amenities that we've shown. A 1 meter, a 3 meter, a drop slide, and a climbing wall in a different body of water. Okay? Then if I go to this particular option, the next question, am I understanding that correctly thus far? Just asking that question.
I think it's worth considering. We aren't pool experts, so we
Okay.
don't know the logistical operational constraints, and I think we're learning as we talk here.
Yeah.
And then the next question I have, which would kind of lean to, like we were talking about concept 2B versus concept 3, right, which I'm showing up here, is it'll guide us, is there a need to actually have 6 lanes of lap swim, 4 lanes of lap swim?
4.
Because that'll guide the design, all right, in that particular regard. So 4 lanes of lap swim. Do I have a consensus on that?
I mean, 6 opens it up to a swim team if you ever wanted to have that. But again, competition pool standards, we're not building this to competition pool standards.
That's correct.
We're building this into lap swim standards where teams could come in and do a workout, but you're not going to have a swim meet. You're not showing diving blocks. The minimum depth for that is 6.5 feet, and recommended is 9. So we're not even in that ballpark, you know, from what that is. As we discussed in our kind of group meeting at City Hall prior, that pool 3 showed 3 lanes, but it almost had a 4th in there if we just widened that and added a 4th lane with a lane marker and made that one end a little bit deeper at 4. You know, I think we end up in that ballpark where that might fit a little better.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So if this went to, okay, so I'm going to keep talking the discussion off, obviously this concept pool here, which is option 3, right, in this particular instance. Noticed how the deeper hopper intentionally is on the west side. A couple thoughts with regards to that. The reason it's on the west side, obviously because there's a platform that goes along with it that talked about those 3 amenities that we were talking about, and architecturally, I would hate to see that along Cedarburg, architecturally, in scale and in size. Start conflicting with City Hall, the landscaping that we're going to talk about on Redbud Plaza with regards to that. So if the consensus is to actually have a separate body of water, we can expand this from 3 lanes to 4 lanes. That's easily done within this pool. And then I heard with regards to the current channel, with regards to that. Is that an amenity that we would like to keep?
I think so. I think it's kind of cool.
Do we lose the dry area?
Once again?
Do we lose the dry area then?
Yeah, you lose the dry play area in this design.
Well, but the dry play area can actually come back, and we would have to work, you know, obviously the synergy of having the dry play area here doesn't quite work because it's at the deeper end of the water. But if the idea is to actually have the dry play area, that would be a planning exercise for our team.
So keep the dry planning area or play area?
Yeah. I'm guessing if they go back and bang their heads against the wall a little bit, there's a way to accommodate it.
Well, there's plenty of
Somewhere.
space on Redbud Plaza, and you could just fence it. Honestly.
So can I make a suggestion, right? Can I make a suggestion? I think right now our task is after we're done getting the consensus, right, is to come back with a singular solution and take all the challenges that we are all thinking in the back of our minds and have our planning team come back and present those. So if we get consensus on, hey, we really want a dry play area, then I'm pretty sure the Lakota team with us, we can figure that baby out, all right, in that particular instance. So I'm just trying to get all the amenities kind of in there. And when we come back, it might actually be a different plan here that you're not going to see. It's going to be just a launching point that we're using here with regards to that.
I was going to make the same suggestion, just throw everything at these guys and let
Yeah,
the guys
and just
we're
make
paying
sure
to
we
figure
have
it out.
the components kind of in tune with that. So I think we have understanding of what the deep hopper is. When we go to the, we'll call it the activity pool, where I think we're all in agreement there's a zero depth edge that goes with it, all right, with regards to that. We talked about 4 lanes in this activity pool. We talked about having a current channel as part of this. So I'm going to delve a little bit more into the detail. So one of the things that we had shown in multiple options is the play feature that goes here, right? And we're showing it at different scales and sizes. So I'm going to go back. I know this is further in our presentation. So in concept 1, we have a subtle play structure with regards to that, with some bubblers and everything else in the zero depth water. This gets a little more elaborate as we have a play structure a little bit larger, and then we're referring to this as the wet deck component. So the wet deck component has the bubblers and the play table in that particular regard. So if I were to ask that question, and then of course if you looked at concept 3, that's very minimal in that particular regard. There is no play feature here that goes in the zero depth end. All right, so the first question that we would have is there a desire to actually have a play feature, which I showed, and that could be scaled to the size appropriately in the zero depth entrance, and that in tandem would go with the question of additional play features, which would have the wet deck that we're showing here. So I guess I'll start with the play feature first.
I think it's a missed opportunity to not include something like that.
I agree.
For the younger patrons, I think it would be extremely popular.
Every parent's going to want that
Yeah.
for young kids.
Oh, okay. Okay. It was a signal
Oh,
of
a yes.
Okay.
Okay, got it. Okay, and then how about the extent of, we'll determine what scale that is, and then how about the extent of the difference between, we'll call it a wet deck and the play feature. Obviously, these are different age groups that would scale up and down. Now, there could be a happy medium between these two, where it's not as big as this, but not as small as the other one, as far as a wet deck and feature goes.
Maybe you can show them the slides.
Which one's?
Personal opinion, I think you nailed 2B in the summary page right on the head. The only difference is to reconfigure that deep end and figure out what that means to get some lap swimming in with that and a climbing wall. You just need to reconfigure the deep end. But
Well, I think the
that's
challenge.
my opinion, and other people like the lazy river. So
I think the challenge is balancing the need. If you populate that deep end, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to piece together the logic you used. With the 6 lanes, if you fill that up with features on the deep end, as soon as you shut down a couple lanes for lap swim, you're giving up a slide or a climbing wall, and now we're creating conflict. Whereas if you just took concept 3 and put all that type of activity in the deep well, then you can have 4 lanes, and maybe you shut down 2 for lap swim and 2 are playing basketball and other activity. It's not quite as impactful to operations.
Yeah, agreed. But keep in mind on the slide page, you had the drop slide, the run out slide, and then the slide that's its separate and own unit. I witnessed kids preferring the run out or the middle slide, that run out slide over the drop slide. The drop side's cool if we can throw it in and it fits, great. However, I think kids like to feel
The
like
plunge
they're-
slide, not the drop run out, right?
Plunge slide.
Yes.
They like to feel like they're going in a circle. If there's 2 of them, they like to feel like they're racing their buddies, and that'll keep them on there and busy for hours. And then you have a diving board or 2, ideally, somewhere in the pool, and I think you're good. That could be in the shallow end of that shallow pool, and you could.
The plunge slide can actually be part of the shallower body of water. That water needs to be about 3.5 feet, 3 to 3.5 feet. Does not need to go into deep water.
Right.
All right, so then
So that opens up options for you as well.
it does. Okay, so then, all right, so then I guess that's tangential. I think we have an understanding what the deep water is, right? I think we're leaning to option 3 with regards to that amenity. So now let's have the discussion about the slide component. So right, obviously, in concept 1, we have the slide component that's immediately on the left, which is a standalone with regards to that. The plunge slide that we're showing here, that actually can go into the activity water with regards to that. There's a way to design that. So am I hearing that? I haven't heard a consensus, to be honest, no disrespect, right? I haven't heard consensus with regards to the plunge slide, with regards to that.
The plunge slide goes in the deep end, right?
Plunge slide would not go in a
Would
deep
not
end.
go in the
Plunge
deep
slide's
We're
goes,
not.
goes into
The
3.5
drop,
feet.
the one goes in the, yeah.
Yeah, the drop slide needs to go into the deep end, right? This needs to go into deep water. That can actually go, the previous option that we showed here, which is this slide in the middle, does not need to go into deep water, but that can actually be designed into the activity water that we were just talking about. So if I go to
Yeah,
just
you probably want that so the little kids could go on the slide too, wouldn't you? You know, because otherwise they're just going to be out. They wouldn't be in the deep end. You want something for them. I don't know.
Yeah, the age progression is 0 depth, then you go into the little deeper, then you start playing with your buddies, throwing balls around and going on the slide. And then kids, as they're learning to swim, their first step of actually going into water that's deeper than knee deep might actually be that shallow slide. Yeah, I think that's the functional progression of a swimmer. Yeah.
I just don't want to decide. I think we're getting really granular now, and I know you need to know these things, but I'd love to hear like the Red Bud Plaza and the building discussion.
Yeah, I was just gonna make
I
a
love you to
suggestion.
come back with like, I know you want to come back with one concept, but like the reality is we may need like more than one.
I'd like to come back with one concept.
Well, we have other things to talk about.
Well, yeah, I think let's get all our feedback in, and I'm confident they'll get it to one concept. Administrator Jones, do you have a point to make?
Well, one of our guiding principles is cost control. And if we throw everything in and we wind up with a sticker price that's beyond what our appetite is from a spending standpoint, we're going to be backtracking a month from now and taking things out and revising the design accordingly. So to the extent possible, let's let the professionals here take our feedback and maybe, as they've done on some of the concept slides, earmark where a run-out slide could go and where a plunge slide could go, itemize what that cost is and what the trade-off is between those two options, and then the council can make or break one or both slides when we get back together 4 weeks from last night. That would be a suggestion.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Yeah, keep the design a little flexible so you can have the Chinese menu approach. Alderman Gebhardt.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make just a couple of quick comments and like Administrator Jones's idea there. But I just want to remind everybody what we're talking about is going to be used 3 months out of the year. Bringing everybody back up to a higher level, we were going to design an area that was going to be more functional year-round. Some things that I think everybody needs to think about, right? And I don't have the right solution. I'm just one vote. But if we have a dry play area in there, is that something that can be used in the fall when the pool's not open? If we're going to be spending $550,000 on it, is that something that's going to be accessible when the pool isn't in operation, meaning spring and fall and what have you? And I don't think that is being factored into everybody's thought processes. We're just throwing around all these great ideas. Like, there's got to be a dose of reality in terms of a little bit of practicality that's applied, right? When I see a price tag of $232,000 on a slide, that's great, but that's the first thing I take out if we're going to make a really cool pool area and some features in some of the lower ends of the pool in that. Like, I think there's some trade-offs here, and I just want everybody to keep that in mind as we move forward, because we can really get down some rabbit holes and then get really disappointed with the end price and then end up coming back to the table, and it's going to add more time. And I'm concerned that's the path that we're on right now with the discussions that I'm hearing today. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
No, I agree with that. We have to also balance that with the fact that we're going to do this once and it's going to be around for 40 or 50 years. So I mean, I hear you. I absolutely agree. We have to control costs somewhere, but I think there's more cost variability on the things we haven't talked about yet, and we need to. Yeah. Any last feedback on the pool? Do you think you have enough to go back and synthesize a plan with? I know there's still a little bit of debate over 2B or 3 and utilizing that deep end more, but or melding them in some manner. I don't know even how you do that, but maybe you do. Do you have enough to go with on the pool?
I think we do. I think you're doing, and Administrator Jones actually put it best, is obviously we can decide the cost elements in the amenities if there is a cost concern with regards to that, and we can provide values to those with regards to that, what that is. So right now, we're kind of hearing, we'll call it a combination of 2B and 3 in some form or other.
Yeah, and I look at I found the packet pages, it's 18 through 22. If you look at just the pool concepts, from the low end to the high end, there's only $800,000 worth of difference. And maybe it's $1 million when you throw in an extra lap lane from the very bottom to the top end. It has almost everything we're asking for. So this isn't where there's the most cost variability. I think we need to get on to talking about the building because we're only, well, we'll take as much time as we need here because, to a point, but we're 15 minutes up against the next meeting, and we can push that, certainly. So if there's enough feedback on the pool, you think you can come back with something and drive to something that's one final plan that has some a la carte options, and I think it may not feel like it, but I think we've accomplished our goal, at least on the pool.
Okay.
Mayor, might I offer a suggestion for the next part? I mean, since we've all read the packets pretty much, maybe we could go through these next sections rather quickly and then do the comments. But that's just my...
I would endeavor to take the challenge, so let's dive into the next section and maybe there's not as much discussion because there's not as many options, but.
Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit about one of the details here. So how about if I introduce it and then I'm gonna turn it over to the Lakota team. So as part of the master plan, there was always an intent to energize, we'll call it future phases of the project with regards to that. And one of the elements that we've incorporated is a concession component, which has that duality, and the priority and the two options that you're gonna see shows the different priorities between them. So I will turn it over the floor to Kevin and Morgan.
So we have two different options for the concessions area that relate to the two different building concepts, the single story and the 2-story. So I'll go through the differences here. This is the single story building option where we are showing the concessions and the multipurpose room kind of side by side at the end of that building. And what we've done is kind of split the area for concessions dining between what would be inside the aquatic area, inside that kind of square and line fence symbol on the edge of the green space, and then have another seating area in the red paver area available outside of the aquatic space to allow for more dynamic use of that space in the off season, so outside of those 3 months that the pool is open. And then within the area inside the aquatic zone, it is split between kind of a general use area and then on the right side, a smaller zone like specific to the multipurpose room. So you'd have that option to maybe cordon off that zone and operate it specific to events going on inside the multipurpose room. And then with the second option, architecture team is going to show you some different uses for the multipurpose space in the building concept. So what we've shown here is a consolidated concessions area all within the aquatic footprint associated to the concessions building, still situated on that west end of the full building structure. So all of this seating area is accessible just to the aquatic space, but we would still have the ability to have like a walk-up window on the north side of that building so that people in the rest of the park during that off-season use could access and obtain things from the concessions building and then be able to take that away onto the lawn or other areas of the campus, or kind of populate this more flexible seating zone that we're showing with more kind of fun sculptural seating and that centralized tree area.
So can I make a suggestion with regards to this? Initially, I was going to ask if we can have kind of direction on each one of these options. But I think the discussion with regards to the buildings may actually lean toward which options it goes with in this particular option Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn over to Rocco. We're going to go over the building design initially, and we'll talk about the single-story option, then the two-story option.
Thank you, Frank. So the two options we have are a single story and a multi-story or two-story option. The concepts are similar with respect to program size and adjacency. The main difference is where the community room is located. So I'll briefly kind of give you a depiction of what the colors are. The program area in pink is the toilet facility, locker facility. That is basically flanked on either side of the yellow space being the main entrance to the pool area at the blue arrow indicating where the main entrance is with some kind of big opportunities to make a connection from street to pool through that lobby space so that there's kind of some transparency to the building. The green would be the aquatic function with a lifeguard and other amenities for the aquatic program, and then some support spaces for both aquatic and building in the opposite side of the corridor from the main entrance. Going over to the west side, far west side concessions was briefly talked about. That can basically be approached from three sides, and there's some flexibility there. The purple is a community or a multi-purpose room, and the benefit of this is that it has both exposure to the pool deck and the street side, and it also creates a view corridor through the building into the pool, which kind of allows the building not just to be a buffer, but also a bridge. And then the space in gray to the right of that purple space is supporting space for the mechanicals for the pool. And this is an animation of that single-story scheme. And as we go through it, I'll kind of describe what you're seeing. So we've kind of used the design principles and the design guidelines to help us kind of create the architecture that has using materiality and different material textures to kind of break apart some of the volume. It's a long linear building, and this helps create kind of a visual interest as we kind of go from one side to the next. The big overhangs can let light into the spaces, but also create some shade. And then as we're seeing the other features, we're going to be talking about the plaza and the Redbud Plaza that we're seeing here in further detail down the road. But you can kind of see the character of the pool in relationship to the building. And this is a still image of that building. So the second story scheme, or the two-story scheme, has what you can see is a very similar layout of similar kind of construction of program adjacencies. We would add a stair and elevator up to the second floor, but the only difference in this plan is that purple space that was to the west side is now moved up to the second floor. So we're creating a little bit of a division of program use, meaning that now the community room has its own special kind of floor, its own special space. But we also have opportunities now, if we create a second floor, is to inhabit that second floor, especially with a pool program. We can use that as a connection to the outdoor environment. So the purple community room can have a terrace that's dedicated to that use. It kind of doubles the square footage to that area, and then off to the left, kind of left of the yellow, we'll have the opportunity for even a bigger deck, which could be used in conjunction with the pool program. It could be a sun deck, an adult deck, So there's lots of opportunities in the two-story scheme to increase the amount of programmable area. In some of the pricing, there was some consideration for adding a second program room to the second floor. There's opportunities to do that. There's costs associated with it, but there is opportunities to have a bigger impact to the site. The I think benefit to this is it has a more vertical presence off Cedarburg Road, and it also kind of allows more dynamic engagement, both for festivals or the pool function alike. Kind of see some, and that's the pool configuration we were talking about before, kind of the zero depth opening up to the west, some of those cantilevered shade structures, and then we have those both covered and uncovered roof areas or terraces.
Then Lakota will talk about the different options here. You see the different Redbud Plaza options depicted in these renderings individually. Okay.
This is a still of that model, or the animation that we had. So this is kind of just giving you an idea of what it would look like from the parking lot.
Okay, so a couple things we want to have just for discussion, which kind of ties the concession component that the Lakota team shared along with our conceptuals, of course, is consideration for concession and the multi-use. So we have questions with regards to, is there a preference to a single-story option, to a two-story option? Is there a preference to actually have multi-purpose rooms? Because presently, the existing facility does not have multi-purpose rooms associated with that in that particular instance. And similarly, we're showing concession in there, which is obviously calculated as Lance has shown in the operational model. Is there consideration to actually have a concession or not have a concession component? Because right now, operationally, you do not have a concession component as part of your facilities. And I think if the decision is made between these two, it'll start guiding the design of the site impact that we showed previously to this.
Some just quick comments. I'll go quickly. Just a subtle thing. I would change where it says lockers to changing rooms. You had like family changing room, and then you had like men locker rooms, women. I would just change them to changing rooms. The goal is just to change and get out of there. And tangentially to that, in my experience, the number one issue that we had at schools were the unsupervised areas in changing rooms for PE and athletics. So really that area, is kind of an unsupervised area, and I was wondering if there would be some connection from the lifeguard room so that, if you heard some noise or something and you needed to get in there to take a look, or kids are playing around, and, the goal is to get in there and get out of there, but that doesn't happen with middle school kids. It's a place where things can happen. And so how do you get access in there, and can a guard, if they hear something, get into that room and say, hey, get out of there? So that was one question. I prefer I think you can save some money. I think the single story, would save some money. I think that would be adequate. I think a multi-purpose room is nice for lifeguard training, CPR training, birthday parties, something like that. Some room for something like that would be nice. Concessions, I'm really iffy on concessions. I loved going after when I was swimming to get my fudgesicle, but things have changed now. That's a complicated area, concessions. You got to store that, you got to secure that, you got to get the food. Things get stale. I mean, it's complicated. And could you do something more creative there with vending machines? If parents want to get DoorDash or something to deliver to eat there, I like the picnic tables and that kind of thing, but I'm wondering if you really need a full concessions. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Alderman Meyer.
I like concept one, single story on it, but I do think, and no disrespect, I do think we need to have some sort of concession inside there for it, concessions for them. I mean, you got people there at the pool all day long, and I know we do have here, now we do have, a couple of vendors that come here and do supply food for it, but it would be nice if we had that there, or even if we just had that venue over there and have that rented out to somebody for the summer to do it. but have the concessions there that they could utilize that. My only question on that is that, and I know it's just a concept plan inside there, and taking a look at the first floor, there's just that small little sliver off on the side of concessions in there. Is that something that can be turned around more? And as you can see, the concessions there be turned around more so that they would be facing the pool more, so that you got the windows there on that forward?
I believe, go ahead, Rocco, go ahead. Turn your mic on.
Yes. We had considered different configurations for the concessions, and a lot of the discussion was, can this be used for not just the pool? So the configuration kind of dictated that we wanted to put it on the end, and if we put it more exposed, with the concessions exposed more towards the pool, we had prevented the opportunity for this multi-purpose room to kind of be both outside and pool use. So it was predicated on those two principles. Whether we want to have more exposure to the concessions and exclusive to the pool, I think that's part of the discussion. But I think the preference would be to have a concessions, if you had it, to be able to be used as a solution for multiple seasons.
Excuse me, if you think that we can't utilize it and switch it around the other way, then I don't see any need to have it, because it doesn't really have any exposure, for people to see that. But I still like concept one and the single story.
Anyone else? Alderwoman Talaco.
Going back to Alderman Gebhardt's comment, I really appreciated that, because we're so fixated on this as a pool building, and that is not the concept that I see or purpose of this building. Our objective was to bring community together into a localized area where that can be used year-round. The goal of this building is to aid, obviously, the pool, but it has a larger purpose than 3 months out of the year. And that is why I think it is essential that we would build something where there would be 2 stories, less of an upper deck, more of a flex space that can be used 365 days out of the year, that we can rent out to parties or knitting clubs or whatever may need it, where people want to gather into the heart of Mequon that we are building so beautifully. And I think it would be a major miss to not build an appropriate building and to overbuild the pool. And so when I'm looking at the cost benefit, I'm looking at this pool or this building to be more valuable to what it can bring to our city. And therefore I would be willing to stick more money towards that than I would be concerned about whether or not we had a second slide for $500,000. I'd rather see that $500,000 go into a building that creates the space and the whole purpose of why we are reinventing this area. So I'm in favor of a second-story building. I think it needs to have more enclosed space so that the building can be used year-round. And I think a concession is essential, and that is part of also our plan, where like hot cocoa could be served even though the pool is closed for the year. Booster clubs can come in, there can be fundraisers. Like, there are endless opportunities for us to rent out a space to recoup some of the cost of what it costs to maintain this building over time. So I'm highly in favor of 2 stories, a more flex area, and I think it's essential that we focus that this building needs to serve 365 days out of the year, not just 3 months out of the summer, so for the pool.
Alderman Parrish.
Thank you, good commentary. Again, I come back to my original comment where, well, first of all, I would prefer the second option. I think we all think it looks wonderful. I don't see why we couldn't have a community room on a single floor option. We do have green space, just make the building bigger for a single floor. I don't know if that's an option. As far as the extra costs for the extra space, this is again where I find my mind trying to cut costs with this project. Same concern that Alderman Gephardt said, but I fully believe that we could fundraise for a community room to offset that additional cost. So I guess that would more influence my thinking. Both work fine. If we're not going to be doing any fundraising, and I know that's not on the agenda for tonight, then I'm concept one, I guess. But otherwise, let's do it right and have the community invest in this so we can get what we want. Oh, and I like concessions. We need that as well. Thank you.
Alderman Strelchak.
Yeah, the team heard my opinions kind of in the earlier meeting, and it somewhat mirrors, several different items. What I didn't like is when we went to the 2-story, we lost the multi-purpose room on floor 1. I think we keep that no matter what, because I think that rental opportunity and that income stream, and then that convenience for getting 30 kids to the pool on any given day, plus the rental fee for that multi-purpose room really kind of makes it a place where people think to go with their families, right? So they think to go for an event, and then they come back kind of for the day-to-day. Question for you, concept 1, 6.8 million, is that just for the building?
That is correct.
Okay. It's a really expensive bathhouse, and I'm a pool guy. Okay, 6.8 million to change your clothes, use the toilet, and have a family changing room so you can go and have a separate space with a little concession stand is really expensive for a pool. So if we're not thinking year-round, I really think we're shooting ourselves in the feet here because, we tore down Logaman but didn't have a plan for that. There's no senior programming anywhere within our city. Every surrounding community has senior programming, and we have an aging community. So we're ignoring that group by not looking at some potential on that second floor. I agree the deck space is wonderful and be really cool for a summer party on a nice day, but if it rains, don't know that, or if it's cold and windy and misty, I don't see that space getting used. But I see an enclosed space with a deck as an option, a smaller deck, getting used year-round. I think if we kept the multi-purpose room on floor 1, went to floor 2 with 2 rooms that could be potentially combined for larger events, people could cater in, they could actually have a wedding in the city of Mequon with parking right there and things, a smaller wedding, right? Not a huge one, but there would be some significant options. We also have Taste of Mequon. I know several banks, investment firms, high-end companies that would rent out that whole floor or a room for Taste of Mequon to host their clientele in there and things like that, and that'd be a real positive for the community. So the missing factor that we don't have is the known factor of the senior programming, right? The known factor of what that upper level is going to get used, and that's what makes this decision hard. And we talked about this, prior. So did you come back, because we talked about a lot, right? Did you come back with what some of the programming uses could be for that multi-use space? Was that in here? I didn't see that in the packet.
For the multi-use space?
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
Okay, so maybe at a
that would be
future meeting,
our next. All right,
maybe
so
at a future meeting, we could come back with that. Like, we talked about a lot. Like I acknowledged, we talked about a lot, and that's one thing, for that multi-use and the, the ROI and the things like that. Really, team, here, what we're building is a gathering place for the community, right? We have to be cost conscious and fiscally responsible, but we should really be focused on the bigger picture, and that's building a sustainable community area where people tend to gather. That is the sole purpose of the campus, right? If we do the ice skating in phase 2, where are they going to warm up? Where are people going to go warm up? Are we going to build another building for another $1 million or $2 million in that space? Like, what does that include? This building is here and it's functional, and it could be a multifunctional and serve the purpose for the winter festivities, ice skating and things like that. But really where I struggle is I don't know where our rentals go over winter. Maybe we should do an analysis on that. I don't know what the parks are doing for the room rentals. I don't know the Rotary gets rented in winter. But this space definitely could be, and it would be a really great space to have for the community to come and do community things. So that's just my piece. Thank you.
Any other feedback from anyone that you'd like to get out? Otherwise, I'm going to maybe ask for a show of hands with a straw poll. Maybe just some comments. If you're looking minimalist just to cover the pool, I think it's important to have at least the one room on the first floor for rent, because birthday parties would be very popular to rent out, and it's a revenue source, and that goes hand in hand with concessions. If you're looking for more of a multi-purpose year-round community center-ish type solution, you might be in favor of 2 stories. And I think that tracks with some of the comments we've heard from people. So by show of hands, who's more in favor of concept 1, the single story? And then the complement question for show of hands for those who favor a 2-story solution in some form, with the ability to, there's some question of 1 room or 2, but I think that can get flushed out when they come back. I saw more hands raised for a 2-story building. Is that accurate, Madam Clerk? Okay, just want to check my math here. Okay.
And then in addition to that, so just confirming, with the concessions, is what I just heard.
Yeah, I think so. We're probably not likely to operate it, but we'll probably lease it to someone to operate. But
All right, so can I ask one? I know we need to, Mr. Mayor, I know we need to move on, but
Yeah.
With regards to the activation, that would lead to this option with regards to the activation of the concession on the 2-story option? Or do we want to balance having some space, because that can be designed that way, with leaving some space totally to phase 2 and later phases, or activation on the outside of the park, well, outside of the aquatic park? So if I understood what I just heard for the 365 and activating the thing in sight, it would lean to this in my mind.
that's my opinion. Others can feel free to chime in. Yeah, show of hands, who likes this versus keeping it more internal for just the pool? If you like the option that's on the screen now. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
To have this instead of,
This is for the
This or
concession type
the
of
other
it.
one is where there's no outdoor seating. It's pretty much seating only for people in the pool. There's still a window outside. That's really all they're asking for.
That's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, seating on both sides.
Okay. So maybe we should take that again. Yeah.
Sure.
Seating all internal with just a window outside, or some seating outside with some seating inside, and ability to serve both with some seating area. So the option that's on the screen now with seating in both areas. Okay. There's not even a need to call the next question. So that was 7 of 8. So
Thank you.
you have a point, Alderman Parrish?
Yeah, I know we want to move on, but I just feel like if we're going to have a playground essentially in this pool area that's going to be double-sided, why do we then have another playground by the library?
Well, because this one's very, very small. And the
So we
other
don't
one's
want to
not
look at just
small.
making this bigger and having one playground instead of trying to get a second one in later on?
Well, I think that goes back to the concept plan we approved.
I know, so
Yeah, it
it's,
had a playground, a
Yeah.
nicer playground located close to where the playground is now.
yeah,
And
it's odd having 2 playgrounds, but I get it.
through way of comment on the pool space, we ended up with a small play area in here. That can be shown as an option that can be à la carte, taken in or out when we come back with the pool plan, I think. Then we can decide if the juice is worth the squeeze on that one. Alderman Bratt?
For the concession, I wonder if there a way you can set it up so that even the stuff that's kind of in the pool area can be used for Four Seasons. Like there's another gate further down, like just to use that space, for other events. Just a thought.
We can explore that option, because I think we've already have. We can share that. If that's that's definitely an opportunity, if that's desired, that can happen there.
Okay. So I think we've given them hopefully enough to work on with the building and the concession configuration. We just have a couple of other aspects. Hopefully we can get through quickly. City Hall entrance, Redbud Plaza. What are people's feelings on this? This is where I struggle a little bit. Some of the concepts are on the more expensive end. I think we want it to look nice, but I don't know if we necessarily want to spend the money here. If there's a general consensus on that, that might be enough feedback for the group to come back and refine the plan. By show of hands, does everyone agree with that philosophy? With the Redbud Plaza and the entrance to City Hall, update it, make it functional, but don't break the piggy bank on it. Is that the goal?
Sounds like
If
the goal.
everyone agrees that's the goal, raise your hand. If that's enough direction to go with, unless anyone wants to talk about the options more, maybe that's enough to go with, to come back with the revised plan. Does everyone agree? Nod, raise hand, thumbs up. Okay.
Okay.
I think that got us through the packet. Is there anything we missed?
I think we got it all.
Okay.
Thank you with that. If you give me just 2 minutes to conclude, if that's okay, talk about next steps, which I
Sure,
think,
yep,
Mr. Mayor, you alluded to it with regards to that. So in preparation for the 8th of September meeting, our team will come back with the feedback that we just received today and update the concepts accordingly. And additionally, as noted in the staff report, we will come back with operating costs and construction costs, and of course, a timeline consideration with regards to that scope. With regards to that. So something just to mention, this is obviously big picture, which will get defined. We took an initial estimation to the construction timeline. Obviously, assuming that there's an adoption of a design, which we will present on the 8th of September with the council, we would move into contract documents and design with the opportunity to actually have a grand opening in July of 2028. Okay, and then that would actually go to the phase after that. Of course, our intent, and I think the mayor alluded to it as well, is to come back with what is the design intent for phase one. And of course, future considerations following the September meeting is exactly what some of the commissioners have been talking about tonight, is identifying the project scope that gets implemented along with its capital assignments with regards to that, and then refine the overall timeline with that. So I do want to thank everyone for your consideration and time and patience with our team. The feedback that we got is very fruitful to us, and I think we have our marching orders and look forward to seeing you all within a month's time.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
See you in 1 month. That brings us to item 4, Committee of the Whole Planning Calendar. In the interest of time, I'm just going to suggest we skip it and move on to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. We will immediately reconvene as the Sewer Utility District Commission and call that meeting to order and call the roll.
Commissioner Strelchek? Commissioner Tolaco? Commissioner Meyer? Commissioner Hancher? Commissioner Bach?
Here.
Commissioner Parrish?
Here.
Commissioner Bratt?
Here.
Commissioner Gebhardt?
Here.
Commissioner Nervin?
Here. First up is approval of meeting minutes from June 9th.
Second.
The motion and a second. Any comments, questions, corrections on the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. On to resolutions. Resolution 4305, a resolution amending the City of Mequon Financial Policy Statement 3 reserve requirements and establishing policy statement 20 for the sewer utility reserve requirements. Administrator Jones and Director Lundin are here to walk us through this, or, okay. Administrator Jones is just the IT guy. Okay. Director Lundin, take it away.
This was presented at the July Committee of the Whole meeting. I do want to highlight the couple changes from the previous version you saw. One was a distinct decision to separate the policies. So rather than have the sewer utility included in the general levy reserve policy, to have them separate. That is similar to how the water utility reserve policy is done. So we just separated the two agreements into Statement 3 and Statement 20. And then the only other changes to the reserve requirements were highlighted. If anybody has any questions, happy to answer. Otherwise, out of respect for your time, I'll move on.
So maybe we take them up in pieces. Any questions on reserve policy number 3?
No.
No discussion. How about policy 20, policy statement 20? No feedback. Is there a motion perhaps?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, let's call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk, or Commissioner Strelchuk is away. Commissioner Talaco?
Be back.
Commissioner Meyer? Commissioner Hancher? Commissioner Bach?
Aye.
Commissioner Parrish?
Aye.
Commissioner Bratt?
Aye.
Commissioner Gebhardt?
Aye.
Commissioner Nervin?
Aye. That's it for resolutions. Informational item, a quick update on Lift Station E progress.
Was included in your packets. Just want to highlight a couple things. One is that we do make weekly updates on the project website listed in the packet in addition to the history of the project. We have transitioned, or the project has transitioned from the installation of the shoring to excavation. So it's going to take several weeks here to dig a 40-foot hole, and then they'll transition to some of the footings. So we are at this point in the early stages, still on time and on budget.
Fantastic, thank you. Alderman Parrish, Commissioner Parrish, sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Director Lundin. Your efforts to communicate with my residents have been greatly appreciated. I received very few comments to date on this project, which I do believe is a testament to the way you're handling this from up to now. I am concerned, obviously, as we move into full-blown construction mode, how this will affect the daily lives of my residents. Things such as hours of operation, not early in the morning, not into the evenings. Certain communications for days that will be louder, perhaps. Parking on the street, which I know is not allowed, but communicating to them that in-site parking, or the police could be called to ticket them, and then keeping the road clean. We expect them to preserve a nice neighborhood and keep the road clean despite the digging and the mud and so on. So if you could just relay that to the general and kind of enforce that, I think this project can continue to be smooth. Thank you again.
Any other comments on the Lift Station E update? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned and will now meet as the Mequon Municipal Water Utility Commission. We can probably let the record show that everyone who was here before is still here, which brings us to approval of the meeting minutes from March 10th.
Second.
Motion and a second on the minutes. Any comments, questions, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. On to several discussion items with possible action. The first, authorizing of an amendment to the Financial Policy Statement 1, the reserve requirements to modify the calculation for the minimum reserve amount for the water utility.
This was also presented in July, mirrors the sewer utility policy that you just approved. Very similar language, including the definition of the operating budget and the update that the reallocation would take place after the audit.
Any questions from the Water Commission? Do we need a vote on this? I guess it does say possible action, so is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Tlaco? Commissioner Meyer? Commissioner Hancher? Commissioner Bach?
Aye.
Commissioner Parrish?
Aye.
Commissioner Bratt?
Aye.
Commissioner Gebhardt?
Aye.
Commissioner Nervin?
Aye.
Commissioner Strelchuk?
All right.
That item is approved. On to authorization to establish a financial policy statement 2 regarding water utility funding.
This was also presented in July. The changes are highlighted and mainly have to do with the feedback from AILers as it relates to the PSC regulations. We included some definitions, a parameter about when the utility would consider a rate case, and then also added the language that with a budget package every year, we will review that the projection of whether or not we're meeting the PSC benchmark. So we are prepared to make rate case decisions as they may come.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions from the commission on this item or a potential motion? Don't all jump at once.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any need to comment or ask question? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item 2 is approved. Our last discussion item, consideration of an amendment to the Mequon Municipal Water Utilities Water Connection Policy related to cost share for betterment of service projects.
This one has been much longer since it came back, but you may recall last year with budget, we had a discussion about the potential consideration of a cost share for betterment of service projects. You provided a series of direction to us in order to draft the policy, and that is what is before you tonight. At the biggest picture or highest level, the water utility is responsible for ensuring equity across all ratepayers. And when we have a build and contribute project, there is often a betterment of service project associated with it. That may include upsizing the main because it serves as a transmission main for the utility. That could include looping a connection so that we get some of the redundancy that we require, or any of a number of other options. Up until this point, we've negotiated those cost shares individually through development agreements, and we've seen enough similarity that we are proposing some amendments to the connection policy that would provide the guidelines in terms of how those would be considered and how the commission could otherwise administer those. It includes amendments to 2 separate sections. One includes some standard language that we've included in other development agreement documentation as it relates to calculations of infrastructure that is less straightforward, that it may be a little bit more difficult to distinguish what is purely the utility cost from what is the development cost. And then we've proposed to add a section that would outline those that might be considering a request for betterment of service reimbursement, what that application would look like. At the 30,000 foot view, it's kind of like what you see for yield plans when people are discussing density. Essentially, they would have to show a development plan that meets the water connection policy, so we understand what the demands of the development would be. And then they'd show an additional plan that would include those betterment of service so that we can more strategically identify what those costs are and what the consideration of cost share for those elements would be. And then on the utility side, the other thing this gives us the flexibility to do is essentially pay for those betterment of service costs and hold them so that when additional developments may connect, to have those properties pay as a part of their connection fee. In the past, prior to this, the developer would hold that cost, and we would include a refund clause in the development agreement that would be paid back to the developer. And there is the flexibility now with this for that to be paid back to the utility. I know that's a lot. I went really fast. I'm trying to be respectful of everyone's time tonight, but happy to go through anything in any more detail.
Commissioner Parrish.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you again, Director Lundin and Mr. Voigt. Is this different than when we're bringing new areas online that did not previously have water? I'm kind of thinking about Uleo Creek in this, I'm playing all this out. Or does betterment of service have nothing to do with when we're bringing like water down a corridor?
I wish there was a straightforward answer. It could be either. So in the consideration of, for example, Uleo Creek, the extension of water main wouldn't be a betterment of service. We don't have other customers up there. We don't otherwise have a need from a utility perspective to serve. But the upsizing of the transmission main and those associated costs would be eligible for betterment of service. So there is some complexities in terms of where it is. Another example that we've talked about is the connection on Donjas Bay to where the new Swan Road water main is. And that's a little bit different because that would actually be a loop. So right now we have essentially a system that's acting as an independent water utility that's serving one subdivision right now. And we'll ultimately need to loop that to the existing system. But there is development along that corridor that would otherwise be served. So betterment of service in that situation is slightly different, which is why we have some clauses in here of if there was a request to be made, how we would sorry.
I'm sorry, I just cut you off.
No,
You're
it's
doing a
okay.
great
Just
job.
how we would determine that.
Yeah,
So-
no, I just, and I get the two differences. So where there's the loop or you're upsizing a main, totally makes sense. And I think the way you answered the question is probably why I'm asking this. One of the main bottlenecks we've had with the Uleo Creek corridor is just that incredible cost to get the water down the corridor. And we've been telling developers that, yeah, you'll incur the costs, and then as people hook in, you'll get reimbursed. So I'm almost viewing this as an opportunity to do this differently, where the water utility is bringing the water down, and we get more fast reimbursement for that.
The first half, yes. The second half, no.
Okay, go on.
Yes. First of all, it's not prescribed, so the commission still retains the ability to consider how it would be done. But in a build and contribute scenario right now, without this amendment, you're exactly right. The developer bears all of that cost, and then any future connections, if they're ever made, would be paid back to the developer. But the PSC requires, well, we've adopted the maximum 10-year payback for that. So unfortunately, at year 11, anyone that connects doesn't have to pay back to the developer currently. If this policy amendment was considered, the water utility would hold those costs, and therefore any future connection forever would be paid back to the utility instead of paid back to the developer. Now, again, then we've paid those, the water utility has paid those costs. So we hold those costs, but then we recoup that long-term with the idea that it would develop at some point in the future.
Okay. And has the city attorney reviewed the proposed language so that the way you're describing the recoup would actually play out that way? And if not, I would just request that you double check all
I
the
love
language.
Brian to read over all of my
Yeah, and
documents,
I like
so
where
I would
you're
be
going with
happy
the
if
betterment of
he
service.
did so.
This is a great idea still, and if we can apply it for new areas we're bringing on for the purposes of economic development, that'd be
If
good.
you're considering approval, I think we can certainly make sure that if the city attorney had any amendments that were substantive, that we could bring it back.
Thank you.
Yes.
There we go. Brian's reviewed it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That policy too gets adopted. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. I was just going to suggest a very, very brief break for those that have been sitting here for almost 3 hours now. Let's come back and try to do it in 4 minutes, if we can. I know I need to get up.
That's fine.
You're gonna have a nicer concession stand than the comic books. It's gonna be. Then I slipped and fell in all the time. Yeah, that little one with the. This one's gonna be a lot nicer.
or active industrial marketing before permanently surrendering this employment land. Do not rezone first and investigate later. At a minimum, defer the vote until the city publicly completes their covenant, successor obligation, utility capacity easements, public costs, and economic development reviews. Once the land is rezoned, Mequon cannot get it back. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening who wishes to speak? Okay, please come up to the podium, state your name and address so the clerk can read it into the record.
Sorry. My name is Jackie Jansen. I live at 3333 West Riviera Court in Lac de Coeur subdivision. My family owns the 107 acres on Bear Road. I grew up in Lac de Coeur and bought my family's home 13 years ago. I see many similarities between the Bear Road plan and Lac de Coeur. The minimum lot size in Lac de Coeur is a 1/4 acre. And I see that the Bear Road plan has more than 1/3 of an acre. I like the clustered conservation development concept that also includes a few large lots to the south and then an expansive open community area with a natural setting that interconnects the nature preserve with plenty of paths. And this also reminds me of where I live in Lac de Coeur. It was a wonderful place to grow up with all the green spaces, and it's now been a wonderful place to raise my 3 girls. I also wish to address the memo from Alderwoman Kelly Talaco. I read the memo, and the high density in Lac de Coeur has not compromised property values. The high density lots are desirable, and they do sell very quickly when they hit the market. The value of my home has more than doubled in the last 10 years. I get real estate letters all the time. They want me to sell my house to them because they have a lot of people who want to move into Mequon and they want to be in our neighborhood. Similar to Lac de Coeur, I see the Bear Road plan to be a very walking-friendly neighborhood. I like the fact that it's near many parks and it's very close to the interurban bike trail and within walking distance to schools and the city center commercial area. I would be inclined to live there. And I would encourage friends and my adult children to live there as well. There are other high-density subdivisions that are highly desirable here in Mequon, and they have large community open spaces. Contrary to the memo's conclusion, I believe the Bear development preserves Mequon's character, value, and high desirability. Thank you for your consideration and approval.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, please come up to the, yep, you in back. Yep, please come up to the podium, state your name and address. Oh, I can take that too. Or Kim, you got it? Okay.
My name is Diane Kockelmeyer. I live on 10258 North Bear Road. I am wanting to speak tonight because I believe that the card that we received in the mail is intentionally misleading. It said that it would be converted to 1-acre properties and critical environment. And as we know from looking at the map, those are not 1-acre properties. I think if everybody saw this map, it would be a different story. So in fact, the planned unit development mixes lot sizes, allows for a minimum 10,000 square foot property, which is 0.23 acres, less than a 1/4 acre. It means that you don't have to have standard rules regarding the building setbacks, lot sizes, and property lines widths. I bought my house on Bear Road because it was a rural road, and the companies that were there do not change that character the way this subdivision would in the northern part of this section. I believe that putting this development all together with 3 sections is very misleading, because then they can use the southern parts to offset the high density in the northern part. I did not want a high density neighborhood when I bought my house 25 years ago. A lot of the people on Bear Road have lived there more than 25 years. My neighbor is second generation in his house. This is not what we had in mind. I liked the light industrial idea because cars are there, they leave. It's not a lot of children playing, I'm sorry, children, but it's a whole different thing than this. So I think that if people knew what you have there, it would make a difference if all the residents on Bear Road realized this, as opposed to the very misleading 1 acre lot size that we were told. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Hello, I'm Tom Jansen and reside at 11631 North Grace Court. I'm president of JPJ Corp., the owner of the 107 acres. JPJ Corp. Is a family-owned business. I grew up in Lac de Coeur subdivision, where my siblings and I grew up. We love the close-knit neighborhood and the community of open spaces at Lac de Coeur. As the city is well aware, there's very little interest in businesses moving to locations outside of the interstate highway business corridor. Over the last 25 years, we did not receive any acceptable offers for business uses. That includes the GMI offer that offered to acquire just a few acres south of their property, which would have inhibited additional development in that corner. So it was not an acceptable offer. Thus, we shifted our efforts toward residential uses. In the late 1990s, the city had a subcommittee note that the current B5 zoning of the property could conceivably accommodate over 1 million square feet. It is not rural, as many people would view the area. It is not a rural area. During that subcommittee meeting, the residents in the area expressed an interest in residential use of that property. Recall that Miller Marriott and Newman Development and others came to us and came before the council here, as well as the Planning Commission, since the early 1920s, or 2020s, excuse me. Also, the city's community development department also sought rezoning of the property. All of those prior concepts had significantly higher number of dwelling units that were proposed. Our current proposal has significantly reduced the density to 87 dwelling units compared to significantly higher concepts earlier. So I ask for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak? Going once, going twice.
Mr. Mayor, just for the purpose of the record, on the dais this evening, there was also an email from Dan Abendroth that everybody should have had the opportunity to review.
Has everyone read the email we received? I think we were all copied over the weekend. And the clerk has included it in the record. Thank you for pointing that out, though. Does anyone else here this evening wish to speak? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to close public hearing? Motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye. Any opposed? We are out of public hearing and back in regular session, and will now take up this matter for consideration. Is there anyone who wishes to kick off the conversation? Alderwoman Talaco.
Thank you, Mayor. As everyone is aware, I did write a memo that I wanted to share my opinion prior to this, because I'm quite passionate that this is just the wrong use of the land. As elected officials, we share responsibility to act as the objective guardians of Mequon's master plan. When our community participates in citywide surveys, they provide us with clear benchmarks for growth, highlighting a unified stance against high-density subdivisions that compress lot footprints beyond historical local precedents and compromise neighboring property values. Our role is to ensure that development requests fit clearly within those established local benchmarks, rather than adopting municipal frameworks to accommodate variances that overextend our infrastructure. There's several things that are just too much that doesn't work on this plan. We just went through a citywide survey to see what our residents want, and they spoke, and they showed up. And if we go back in history, those sentiments have been the same for a very long time. This proposed development is asking us to compromise our standards, to give a variance that we didn't even give to the downtown district in Mequon for smaller lot sizes, and compress this land that has been zoned for a very long time industrial. While I'm not completely opposed to changing and considering residential here, I do oppose the amount of density and the small lot sizes that are proposed here. I think that when I hear that they're like, we're trying to offer houses that are affordable, there's nothing that we can do to impose that to make sure that that happens. From a city standpoint. And in the history, when that has been used as leverage, those houses go for market value. So there's no way that there's going to be a $350,000 house on this quarter-of-acre lot when the market doesn't deem it to be that. So what I see here is a developer trying to put as much as they possibly can on this land, and then on top of it, ask us as elected officials to go against what our residents truly want, which is at a minimum half-acre lots to 1-acre lots. And I think that we all need to object to this tonight and have them come back to the drawing board with a more reasonable plan of what our residents want and what we were elected to uphold. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to opine? Maybe I'll start some discussion. Oh, go ahead. No,
You want to go?
go ahead, Alderman Hancher.
This business at Industrial Park started in the 80s, and it developed part of it, and then it stopped. And so there's no development. So you have this area of land that hasn't been developed. And there's not businesses that are willing to invest in that. Now, if you look on the west side of Mequon, just across the borders, you have Milwaukee building business industrial parks, and you have Germantown building industrial parks. They've got them there. And the reason why they have them there is because it's near the freeway. So in the last 3 years, they've built several business parks that are being filled up. Again, because it's the freeway. The reason why, in my opinion, that hasn't happened, and in that area is because it's not near a freeway. It's not a very good location for a business to, industrial business to have. They're all over on the west side. So we've been very cautious about changing to the residential. We've had the 2 plans prior that was struck down because it didn't meet our requirements. So this time I feel the plan is sufficient enough to meet the requirements. Now, all this talk about lot sizes being, it has to be a half acre. The problem is that in the 1970s, that wasn't the case because I live in Huntington Park. In Huntington Park, no homes are less than a half acre. I mean, they're all less than a half acre, excuse me. They're less than a half acre. Most of them are a quarter. Most of them are a third of an acre. Home values haven't gone down because of the size of it. In fact, they've gone up. I have a new neighbor 2 months and next door to me. The house that he bought, it's gone up in value a lot in the last 3 years. So I don't get this thing about the size of am I in a bad neighborhood because I have a less than a half acre? Am I in a bad subdivision in Mequon? I mean, to me, I don't understand that. If the homes are built with quality, and in this case, there's going to have 56% of the land is natural. It's going to be a natural area that everybody can use. To me, it serves a purpose of drawing in people into Mequon. It has now functional use where people can actually use the nature and walk the nature paths. But this whole idea about, okay, if it's 0.25 acres, it's bad. But if it's 0.5 acres on a house on it, it's good. And somehow the neighborhood, my neighborhood must be really bad. That's the feeling, that's my opinion when people talk like that. Is that the size of my lot determines whether I am a good, if my life in Mequon is good or bad. I don't get that. I tell you, there's people that live in my subdivision for over 50 years. They were the first ones there, and they still live there, and they love it. We have wonderful new families that are coming into our subdivision. They don't have big lots, but that doesn't make the quality of their life any worse. So I'm going to be in support of this because I think we've seen that businesses haven't been attracted to it. We rejected 2 housing developments already, and so if we're going to reject this one, then I don't know what are we going to do. Are we going to wait around some more? I don't know. That's the way. And when people say, "Well, I don't want to have," it's a terrible thing to have. Then you're saying that about my neighborhood. I take offense to that. So.
Alderman Strelchuk.
I'm going to swing the pendulum the other way. I'm in District 1. We've got 5-acre density. And we've got significantly larger lots. They're huge. I got a ton to mow, and it's hard to maintain, but it's nice. It leaves that rural character. I'm going to highlight the fact that we had, landowners that lived in not Villota Park. Why am I blanking? Lac de Coeur, where my grandparents lived. Great community, fantastic. Honestly, when I chose to buy my house, I didn't like how close some of the houses were to each other and some of the cul-de-sacs. I thought that they were too close. They backed up to each other, and that wasn't the privacy that I needed and wanted for my house. We have different housing stock in Mequon for different people. Huntington Park is a beautiful subdivision. There's great homes in there, and it's great. I think as a council, what we need to take into consideration is the pendulum swung away from the smaller lots to larger lots, and we have standards and policies based on those larger lots. So as we are here today, whether we lived in a subdivision with a smaller lot, I grew up in one with a half-acre lot. It was great. I thought it was huge. I had to mow it. I hated it. It was a ton of work, especially when the rider broke down and I had to hand mow it. It was a ton of work. My main objection to this is that, and I've been pretty consistent all along, good family that owns the land, great builder who wants to build on the land, great developer. They've done some really high-quality neighborhoods. If I remember correctly, you've been in Parade of Homes, subdivisions as well. So, I mean, you know, this is a good opportunity. If you guys want to outvote me on this, that's fine. I'm still hung up on the predication that this was industrial land, and, you know, if we want any industrial expansion, this is really the last place that we have unless we rezone some things out in my district. As soon as we rumor that we want to expand industrial to my district to get closer to the freeway, my phone's going to ring off the hook. Those residents that bought their houses out in the country are going to be upset, and they're going to ask me the question, why did you vote to have high density, higher density, not a bad subdivision, not a bad neighborhood, but a higher density subdivision where you had industrial zoning before, only to consider industrial zoning by my home? I have no good answer for that. I'm elected to support my district. I'm elected to support the people that live within my district, whether I like the builder or the landowners, and I believe in the work that they do. I have to vote based on what would happen in my district and the pulse of what my district would probably ask for in this case. With that basis, I'm a no vote on this, unfortunately, tonight, and you know, I have the utmost of respect for everybody in the room that wants to build the subdivision. I think, you know, for the space, it's as well thought out as it could be. But I got to vote and back the people in my district and uphold that standard that was expected, you know, based on our zoning codes. Thank you.
Alderman Bach.
I kind of agree with Alderman Strelczyk. I have the high praise for Newman Development. Nothing against them. My issue stems with the resident who spoke, GMI Solutions, which is adjacent to this property, mentioned that you know, the company was interested in expanding and moving there. So I have questions about why didn't that happen? This wasn't just once, but maybe over multiple years. And you know, I didn't hear everything, but there's some questions in there, you know, from that owner, you know, adjacent to this property. I do think that there's a lot of homes in this area too. I mean, maybe there's some more creative ways to do some with less homes, but I have questions on the expansion there of that. What held up there? Why wasn't that allowed to expand? And you know, what were all the negotiations over the years there, and what happened, and why wasn't that owner?
I'm going to stop you there. Those negotiations are none of our business.
Exactly.
They're well in
Yeah.
the past. So
Yeah.
I don't, you know, I'm gonna pull an audible here. I rarely interrupt, but we have testimony tonight from someone who gave us a new piece of info. We don't know how much of it is accurate or not. And we have discussed this two other times over the past 4 years, and there's been every opportunity to bring that forward before now, the night we're about to vote on the ordinance. I find it a little odd that we haven't heard about it until now. There's been every opportunity, and those that have been on the council long enough remember taking this up and considering it on a concept plan basis those two times. So I don't know how much we should put stock in last-minute testimony when we've been considering this for some form of this for the last 4 years. And it has gone down in density every time. It came in much more dense in the beginning. And to some points made earlier about city survey, we specifically put this item on the city survey, and there was general public support for residential in this area in those results. So I don't want to muddy the water on that record. Regarding the comment on density, it's a it's a conservation subdivision. You don't look at the lot size and say 0.3 acres is the lot size. The average density of this subdivision is 1.23 acres. It's the 107 acres divided by the 87 lots. That's the net density. We do this many other locations in the city. Those subdivisions have been successful. They've been desirable. To suggest we should have bought the land as a TIF, the industrial TIF was not a very successful TIF. We barely cash flowed positive on that and closed it out with meager dollars in the bank. I don't think buying this prospectively as a city would have been a wise use of city funds. There's all sorts of problems with what was suggested there, fiscally speaking. And we are have been looking at expanding industrial land to the southwest corner of the city. It's been a policy discussion we've had for the last couple of years that's in the pipeline. And whether this gets developed as residential or it gets developed as industrial 20 years down the road, eventually this land will be gone too, and we'll need to expand for more industrial use because that's good for the tax base. We're well over 85% of our budget funded by single-family homes. It's probably worse now with the market appreciation. There should be a healthier percentage of the overall levy supported by industrial and commercial. It's just we've gone a little lopsided again because home values have outpaced the industrial and commercial areas. So we're gonna need more of that in the future regardless. So that's all I'm gonna say. I just wanted to correct a couple things and add additional color. And with that, I'll open it back up for more comment. Alderman Parrish.
Yeah, I just felt like I wanted to kind of add on to what the mayor was saying as far as the historical perspective here. Again, the Economic Development Committee studied the Southwest Corridor. They played by the process that we set forth, which is that we will reconsider this area becoming residential if the council is open to activating industrial in the southwest corner of Mequon, which for the public's knowledge is the corner of County Line and like Granville Road, between Granville and Swan. So, I mean, it is closer to the freeway. Good points you brought up there. I do think it would be fine as industrial the way it is if this parcel was left as industrial, but I think that ship has sailed, guys. You know, we've had a lot of discussion about it, and I don't think we necessarily need like the southwest side or this side, and I thought we kind of came to a consensus on this. Now, the density is a whole nother question, you know, and I get what you're saying, and I'm actually not ready to state how I'm going to vote, so I'm going to put my vote up in the air right now. I thought Alderwoman Talako's memo was terrific. Having been on the Planning Commission, I don't recall seeing like an alternative concept plan. So, I mean, if there was 50 houses that could go on this entire site, to me, that's the best of all worlds. So, regardless of how I vote tonight, whether it passes or no, if it fails, I guess my message to the current property owner is I stand behind the process and what I've said publicly, which is I'm open to this land being residential as long as we activate the southwest corner for industrial. They go hand in hand. I get what you're saying about the net density. When you factor in the cluster, it ends up being over an acre. That's true, but again, this is really two different developments. So 20, 30 years from now, they're not gonna know this was two different developers. By the way, I appreciate that the original plan didn't have this connection road between the north and south, so I was a hard no until they put that in there. I still hate that little outlet in the corner between lot 34 and 54 going back to Enterprise Drive. I don't think we should be connecting, and no cars can go through there, but I just don't think we should be encouraging back and forth traffic. So, you know, I'm not in love with the plan. I stick by what I've said in the past. I may vote no tonight, and if I do, it doesn't mean I'm not interested in seeing this develop further into residential. Thank you.
I'd just like to clarify, it never came before Planning Commission before it came before this body as a consultation hearing, either in council or committee of the whole. I can't remember which. But
What did I say that you're clarifying?
Well, there is a comment made that you don't recall it coming before Planning Commission before, and that is correct, but that's because it came before this body for consultation hearings 2 other times.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Yeah.
2 other times, and
We
it's
have.
gone down in density each time.
Yeah, and the prior, and I said this at Planning Commission, this is by far the best design we have seen. The other designs were horrible. There was like apartments and duplexes and senior homes and just everything you could throw on it. This is, what we're seeing here is respectable, but it does feel very inconsistent with other developments. All these garages are forward facing, and I mean, there's things about this that are not apples to other subdivisions. But I do, in my mind, want to work with these developers. They have a lot of work. They have the best product by far to date. I hope they don't go away even if we vote no tonight. I want to keep working on it is kind of where I'm at, but I'm going to let my colleagues finish exerting their thoughts, and maybe we could vote soon. So.
Alderman Meyer.
I'll try to make it brief on here. I'm not a fan of the design. I like the southern half a lot. The northern half, I'm not a fan of it. Surveys don't support this type of density. So, and we send out the surveys for a reason. We send it out to find out what the residents want inside of our city. And they spoke pretty boldly about it and saying that the types that they want. Now, they did say they wanted residential inside of that area, and I do agree with the mayor. They came out very clear inside of the survey, but it also came out very clear inside of the survey that the size of the housing and that the residents would like to have, would like to see. And because of the fact that somebody comes before us, a developer comes before us 1, 2, 3 times, maybe 10 times, doesn't make any difference whether or not we accept a proposal on the amount of times the person brings it into us. It gets approved on the fact that that's something that, we think is going to be a benefit for the city, something that is going to be, a benefit for the community as a whole. And, I take a look at this and I struggle with the fact of, all the garage doors facing the roads. I mean, the only reason that's there is to put more homes inside of the lots. That's the only reason. And I don't befault the developer or anybody trying to get more money out of the property. That I definitely don't. But the look at that, having the doors facing that all the time, and the fact of doing that just because of the fact they increase the amount of homes that you can have on an area, and I just don't agree with that. And the fact of the matter that some people say the fact, well, it's got all this open space and everything. A lot of that is just required because it's not buildable by any means, shape, or form. The wetlands aren't buildable. All the floodplains area, all this stuff is just not buildable inside of it there. So, does it meet the classification as conservation subdivision? Yeah, it does that. But it's almost like forced into doing that because of the fact that all these other stuff is just not developable whatsoever. And let's kind of put in that classification so we can get this development built. That's all I've got to say about it, but I'm not going to be in favor of it.
Looks like Jack has brought up the survey results in case anyone wants to reference them. So there's a distinction between, was it half-acre lots and 1.5 to 1 acre lots? Slightly more supportive than 1 to 5 acre lots, but there's no option on the survey that perfectly matches this scenario, so you have to do some mental extrapolation. Alderman Strelchak.
Yeah, just highlighting the zoning doesn't match the survey. The way that the zoning is, it's lot sizes in the survey, so the lot sizes to the north aren't even surveyed and aren't part of it, so I would go closer to maybe the townhome support on something like that.
I would agree, but they don't match, but it's hard enough to explain this concept to the average resident in a survey, and then you throw a planned unit development for a conservation subdivision, and no one knows what you're talking about. So it's,
Hard or
that's why
not,
those options weren't on the survey.
Yeah.
We talked about that when we constructed the survey. Alderman Bratt.
Yeah, so thanks again for coming back. I remember seeing previous iterations of it. You know, I live in Lac Decour. This has some of the features of it, but it's also lacking some of the amenities that Lac Decour had. And I understand why they're not in here. There's no lake, there's no swimming pool, there's no bald eagle living in the trees. I'm not opposed to residential development in this area, but I think this is the wrong policy way to do it. I'd rather take a systemic look at converting this through the zoning code and a broader scope and looking at other areas versus just doing this as a one-off zoning change. My question is, and I don't know if you can answer, like how many of the lots can you fit if you meet like the half an acre lot size versus what you have? That's just, it won't change my vote, but I'm just more curious, like if it's 73 lots, what would that bring that down to? I know it from a,
I would guess the seven, my name's Steve.
Yeah, yeah.
I would guess the 73 lots would turn into 40 lots.
okay, all right, thank you.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to go through the comments that I made when we had our meeting at the Committee of the Whole, in which we had a really thoughtful and productive discussion amongst all of us in terms of what the next steps were on this particular project and whether or not it was worth the effort of continuing those discussions. And from what I gathered, or remember certainly, there was general support to go ahead and move this project forward with some conditions that this body had brought up in terms of certain changes that they were looking for in this property. And from what I can tell, those changes have been accommodated in these revised plans. I'm a little bit surprised to hear the sentiment and the strong sentiment that I am from this group, because I feel like we may have led somebody down a road to spend additional time and energy on something that maybe we're backtracking on. And I just think that sets a really bad precedent for us in the city of Mequon in terms of we need people that want to come in here and continue to do thoughtful developments, projects, what have you. I think this definitely checks that box, multiple boxes. I supported it generally the last time we had this in-depth discussion, and I'm going to support it again tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Alderman Gebhardt. On that note, I found the minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting is March 10th, 2026. I'll just read one paragraph from the minutes. Mayor called for several straw poll votes from the committee members to provide city staff direction. All members agreed that some of the residential planning is appropriate for the site. 6 out of 9 members indicated they would allow for 10,000 to 13,000 square foot lots in the northern subdivision. That wasn't that many months ago. You know, I'm not saying you have to change your vote. That's what happened. That's in the minutes. At the Committee of the Whole, if you don't like it, just say no and don't lead someone on. This is right out of the minutes, which we subsequently approved. So, you know, 6 out of 9, I don't know how it's going to trend tonight with the vote, but 6 out of 9 said they'd support this. We put some modifications on there. They added some of those modifications and came back to the plan here. I just want to make sure that when we give people feedback, we're giving them the real feedback and aren't just waiting to change our mind later. And I'm not saying anyone is, but 6 out of 9 doesn't feel like where we're ending up currently. But echoing those same comments, you know, people come here, they negotiate in good faith. We gotta do the same.
Make a motion to call the vote. No, I make a motion to call the vote. No, there isn't?
Are you? Someone can propose a motion to approve or deny. Unless anyone else wishes to speak. Alderwoman Tlaco.
Mayor, thank you for refreshing our memory. And, you know, I think sometimes the discussion is led by somebody that kind of makes you kind of think like you need to change your vote sometimes. I think that the development brought before us, turning it residential, I'm not against, but I think it would be better suited for 40 to 45 more custom homes. It's a transitional place in Mequon. We have a rural character, that is Mequon. What separates Mequon from Cedarburg, from Port Washington, from you name the communities, it is having open space and land. Our residents do want that. I think that you can do a thoughtful development in this area still, and I would love to see a plan that would accommodate that to make a better transition. Telling me that, you know, they're 1 point whatever acre lots when however many acres are not buildable to begin isn't doing anything for our land. Our land is what separates us. It's what keeps our wildlife, which makes us a bird city, which people love coming to us because of it. So I think that tonight it's, you know, I make a motion to deny this, and I would like you guys to come back and still negotiate and see what 40 to 45 custom homes look like. And I think that you would get overwhelmingly unanimous approval and be able to move forward.
I appreciate those comments, but that's the feedback that should have happened in March.
I disagree.
Oh, no. You can disagree, but that's my opinion. Alderman Gebhardt. I thought I saw you raise your hand.
You did.
I think it's unrealistic to expect that any business person is going to come back to this committee if this is turned down tonight based upon the feedback from our last meeting. And they went back to the table and followed what we asked them to do and delivered on that. I think if you think that this process is just going to continue out and they're going to cut half of the homes, that isn't going to happen. If they could have done it, I'm sure they would have gone ahead and done that, and that wasn't part of our discussions the last time. The other piece, we talk about this area, this conservation area, right? As it stands right now, that area is not usable by anybody other than the people that own the property. That now opens up this area to be used by others and enjoyed and appreciated. So those are just my follow-up comments.
Mr.
We'll
Mayor, may we make a statement as the applicant, please? So I guess we'll say, we're home builders. I mean, one thing that we go around to every municipality that we go to is to talk about the housing crisis that we're in. You know, there is a massive shortage of housing of all sizes, all lot sizes, all housing styles across our region. And it's even more prevalent in desirable places like Mequon. So when we look at developable parcels, you know, the very few that do remain, we have to get creative. We have to be economical because the market forces that to happen. So when we look at a parcel like this one, you know, we see it as what it is. It's a transitional area. This is not typical Mequon. I grew up near here as well. I didn't grow up in Mequon, but this isn't typical Mequon. This is a transition area, and this is where stuff like this is meant to happen. You go from industrial to small lots to larger lots. There's demand for all of it in a strong way. And I can sit up here and say that if the direction is make it all half acre to an acre lots at $1 million plus houses, it's not going to happen. We're not going to do it. It's not economically viable. It works perfectly in the 14 lots on the southern side of this, and that's what will come there. But that works there because there's a transition area of different types of housing that does work. So we took the feedback that we got, we took it to heart, we made the necessary changes to incorporate all the buffer areas, to make the lots 13,000 square feet, to incorporate the trails and the public benefit to the entire area. We're dedicated to conservation, we're dedicated to improving the area, but this is what it looks like. And this will be very successful. So we'd love to move forward with this as it's drawn.
Go ahead, sir. Yep.
I'd like to make sure that we look at this in the right perspective. The JPJ Corporation, the Jansen family, has followed the process and has been very patient. I feel we've been misled in this whole process, spending tens of thousands of dollars over the last 35 years that we've owned it, paying over $600,000 in taxes. Okay, we pay $25,000 in taxes for a property that should be allowed to be developed, either industrially or residentially. The construction costs for a road, sewer, water, asphalt has more than doubled in the last 10 years that we've been looking at this as residential. You have to have economies of scale. I feel stabbed in the back because I've talked to some of the members here previously. They've publicly stated, okay, a little more buffer, they don't have a problem with residential. We've accommodated those concerns. The neighbors, let's face it, Bear Road, the residential area is non-conforming. The homes along Bear Road are zoned B5. All right, so they're not conforming, but they're allowed residential use there. You're not going to have custom estates along this area. It's just not that type of area. It is not a rural area. It looks rural because the city has not allowed us to develop this. It looks rural. I've been before this council and the plan commissions. Mr. Mayor has probably seen me numerous times. I think you have the longest tenure on the council here. I'm a resident of Mequon. I have two other siblings that are residents of Mequon. It'd be great to have this tax base. The infrastructure exists. There's sewer and water there. To have people pay the user fees for the water and the sewer, it's to the benefit of the utilities for the water and the sewer. I don't know what more we can do. I don't know what this council is trying to convey to anybody that wants to develop in Mequon. The hurdle has just, you keep raising the hurdle. We've expended tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Our prospects here, we have an accepted offer. I didn't get an accepted offer, or an acceptable offer from GMI that at the last minute have wanted to acquire the property. The sign has been in front of their office for years. They haven't approached us. Oddly, all of a sudden, we make this proposal and they come out of the woodwork. That's not acceptable. We've had inquiries with...
This isn't a debate.
I'm getting attacked here.
This isn't a debate.
I'm getting attacked here.
You had your piece, they get their rebuttal, but this is not a conversation.
Well, he had his chance to talk. He has a chance to talk already.
No, public comment is closed.
But he's public comment.
This is
I'm
not.
the applicant.
He's making a
He's the
public
applicant.
comment about an
Sir.
offer that we had.
Take your seat, please.
So again, just to conclude, this is not a rural area. We've tried the best we could to bring in industrial users. We've had nationally renowned real estate brokers, industrial brokers, without much success. We've competed against the TIF district of the business park for years. We could not compete with the subsidized industrial park. I think this is based upon a template that has worked in other areas, as cited, Huntington Park. Lac de Coeur, the old Ville de Parc. We've had proposals of people wanting duplexes, quadplexes. You have to have the density for the economies of scale to make the economics work. We're not going to, our family is not going to require, we're not going to recoup the investment that we put in this property over 35 years, the taxes that we paid, the engineering, legal fees, et cetera. What you're communicating to anybody that's listening to this, that the city of Mequon is closed for business. It's difficult to work with. I'm trying to be patient. I'm a little bit at wit's end. I would sincerely ask you to reconsider this. This is the absolute best plan that I think has sought a compromise for the community, for the neighbors, for our family, as well as the developers. Please reconsider. That's all I ask.
Any last comments, or we have a motion with no second on the table, or someone could make a competing motion that could get a second. There was a motion made to deny, I think by Alderwoman Talaco, that no one seconded. But someone could make a motion to approve. It's just voting for the inverse. Okay, there's a second to the motion to deny. Alderman Strelchak.
Yeah, that wasn't a unanimous straw poll vote. 9 people voted. Mr. Mayor, if you voted in favor of it, it was a 5-3 vote, so it was a split decision, pretty close to being able to go the other way. I'm going to politely comment and respectfully comment, you do a really great job of running a meeting. You do a really great job of getting consensus and gathering things. And then sometimes just to keep the meeting moving, which you absolutely need to do on some evenings, you'd be like, hey, we'll see the plan when it comes and you'll have an opportunity to vote on it. When people are hesitant to cast a vote one way or another. A straw poll vote is not a vote with a plan. A straw poll vote is not a vote with, that you're going to move this forward, but it is a pulse check, and I agree. If we gave a pulse check as a council, we should, seriously review it and look at how we voted that night. I'm going to say that, being a dissenting vote here and one, that's not in favor of this, based on the people in my district. And I'm told that, we're being stabbing people in the back. And I just don't think that's appropriate when we're talking about this stuff here. I just simply disagree. I disagree for concrete reasons that back my people in my district.
I think you disagreed last time, but...
And the straw poll was a split vote. It wasn't a unanimous vote.
I agree, but...
So we have the plan before us and we're able to vote on it tonight.
I'll say this, we can agree to disagree on this. I don't care that we disagree.
Yeah.
But when people come here and get feedback to go forth and revise concepts and come back, we're giving them hope that there's a yes at the end of the tunnel, and they're going to go off and spend the tens of thousands of dollars they did to try and get there. All I'm saying is when we do that in the future, get all the feedback out on the table so that they can come back and get a yes. The nature of this conversation has shifted since we saw it at Committee of the Whole a little bit.
Yeah.
Not from everyone, some of them inconsistent no's, I think you were one. But in general, that's our responsibility as a council, not to drag the process out.
The feedback that I gave to change my vote was to have less lots abutting up to the industrial building. And there's still a very large cul-de-sac with the same portion as are on the larger acres.
I agree. You have been consistent on this. I'm not saying you weren't.
All right, great. And I think people, if they see the plan and they've heard the discussion, can choose to vote how they choose. But I don't think we should place judgment on them for having a differing opinion.
Well, the plan is not substantively different than last time.
It's starting to feel like that as a trend a little bit more than it has in the past. And I'm respectfully going to ask, just that we listen to what people have to say and we vote accordingly. And that's what we'll do tonight.
I'm just saying we should be sensitive in the future and get all the feedback out.
Don't forget, this went before the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission approved of it. So it's not something that hasn't been looked at for a long time.
Planning Commission's a different governing body.
I understand that, but when I went back and I looked at the video of the Planning Commission and listened to the comments and the feedback, I got the impression that the majority, it was 411, the vote was that they agreed with it. So when I look at the Planning Commission and they've exhausted and studied it, I have confidence that they've done their due diligence. But then we go, wow. And then we did that, at committee of the whole, we gave them direction. Now we're saying it isn't good enough. And I agree with the mayor that, you can't, if you didn't want it, then they should have said, no, we don't want it. But now we've led them to believe that this was, a project that would be acceptable. It went through the Planning Commission, they made the changes, and now we're saying, no, we're not gonna do it. So and then the other thing is, I keep on hearing about how bad small lot sizes are. Again, I live in a subdivision like that.
Nobody's judging you.
But it is, because you're saying that, people are saying that if you have a lot size of 0.525, that is horrendous. And I'm telling you, I live in Huntington Park. We have very similar, it's very identical. And we have in the southern part, we have a nature area with a nature trail, just like they're gonna have, they're proposing. My across the street neighbor, there's lots small. Doesn't make my subdivision any less of a desirable neighborhood. In fact, it's more desirable because more young families can move into it. In my subdivision, there's a lot of young families, and the reason why is because they're more affordable.
Yeah.
Yep. And now I'll flip around.
And there's like but it's like $500,000 homes though. That's affordable now. My neighbor just bought a home for, my new neighbor who's early 30s, $589,000.
I wasn't done talking.
Point taken.
so-
I think this body does reserve the right to overturn any planning commission decision too. So
Right.
just because they approve it doesn't mean we have to. So I'll argue the reverse of my comment on the committee of the whole one. But we are the committee of the whole. We are the council. So that's a little different. It's the same body with a different name. So I think we've had enough debate. We have a motion and a second for denial. So if you are in support of denial, you vote yes. If you're against denial, you vote no. Just to clarify, please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchek?
Aye.
Alderman Talaco? Alderman Meyer? Alderman Hancher? Alderman Bach? Alderman Parrish?
No.
Alderman Bratt?
No.
Alderman Gephardt?
No.
4-4.
No. That just means it's not denied. It doesn't mean it's approved. Well, it's a tie. I voted no to denial.
You voted no.
We can make a motion to approve it.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2026-1694.
Second.
Motion and a second. Let's call the roll again.
Alderman Talaco? No. Alderman Meyer?
No.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Bach?
No.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Bratt?
Aye.
Alderman Gephardt?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchek?
No.
4-4.
Aye. Good luck. I hope it works out. Moving on to personal appearances and public comment. Citizens wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time. If you desire to be heard on the agenda, you may be heard when that item is considered on the agenda. Please speak into the microphone. Time limit is 5 minutes. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak on any matter not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to public officials' reports. I have nothing this evening. Mr. City Administrator? Nada. On to the consent agenda. We have various meeting minutes of boards and commissions and staff reports, as well as 2 resolutions. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We have no other ordinances this evening. We have 3 resolutions. Resolution 4303, resolution approving the reallocation of $182,500 in funding received through the American Rescue Plan Act. This was recommended earlier this evening by Finance and Personnel. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Meyer? Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Bach?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Brad?
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak? Alderman Telaka?
The ayes have it. On to Resolution 4304, a resolution approving an award of a contract for the installation of municipal Wi-Fi security cameras and keyless entry systems at Rotary Park, River Barn Park Pavilions to Advanced Technical LLC of New Berlin, Wisconsin, in the amount of $147,544. It's a recommendation coming forth this evening from Public Works.
Public Works approved of it, so I'd like to make the motion to accept Resolution 4304.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a second. Any comments or questions on this item? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Bach?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Brad?
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak? Alderman Telaka? Alderman Meyer?
That 2 is approved. On to Resolution 4305, a resolution amending City of Mequon Financial Policy Statement Number 3, Reserve Requirements, and establishing Policy Statement 20, Sewer Utility Reserve Requirements. This was recommended earlier this evening by the Sewer Utility District Commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 4305 is also approved. We have no specified unfinished business from prior meetings. We have no specified new business. We do have a potential closed session. Guerrero versus Mequon. The Mequon Common Council may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 Prin 1 Prin G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as deemed appropriate. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
Move to go in public hearing.
No.
Oh, what?
Closed door.
Closed
Oh, I mean
session.
closed session. I'm
Did I
sorry.
say public hearing?
No.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, we can have more debate on it.
No,
but
no,
yeah.
no, that's right. No, that's right. Motion to go in closed session, I'm sorry.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Well, I mean,
We need to take a roll call vote, please. Okay, please call the roll.
Alderman Bach?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Brad?
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak? Alderman Telaka? Alderman Meyer? Alderman Hancher? Mayor Nurbin?
Aye. I do not anticipate we will be coming back from closed session, so we'll adjourn the meeting there. Good night.